Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. I didn't have the normal comedic entry tonight because I'm very, very amped and I wanted to just jump right in because I'm bringing back a friend to the show who is really one of the first guests I ever had on this program. And we hit it off right away. I made a couple appearances on his channel, and then non-election years or whatever, although I guess this is technically not really what's considered an election year. So we haven't really had opportunity to hang out very much. And I would watch him. Certainly every time election season rolls around, like you, undoubtedly, I would make sure that if I wanted to know what was actually likely to happen in an upcoming election, you'd check out the People's Pundit, because Rich Baris is pretty much the last reliable pollster on the planet. like certainly in this country. I can't speak for other countries, I don't know, but he seems to just be better at it than anyone. And I know better than to try actually reaching out to him during an election season, because this guy is swamped and working crazy hours like a lunatic. It's effectively like an attorney when he's on trial, or I guess live streaming a trial, and they got those 18-hour schedules, but probably a little bit more intense just because the pressure is so high to be accurate and to keep people updated about every freaking development. And he has that even in an odd number year, all the more so when you're talking about an even number year. And recently I saw him make a comment about a controversial topic that I was like, wow, he's, I usually agree with his takes on things. On this one, I felt like I think differently on this one, and it got me very curious. So I said, hey, can you come on and talk about it? And he very warmly agreed. He's grown astronomically since I think the last time he's been here, and God bless him. He deserves 10 times the audience he currently has. And that is my friend Rich Baris, aka the People's Pundit. How are you, brother?
Living the dream, Joe. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate all those comments. That was really generous of you. I'm glad to be here.
I just want my audience to know who you were. I wanted to make sure so I gave them the most accurate lowdown I could as to who you are. Let me ask you a couple of questions out of the bat. First and foremost, you look like a million, like way better than I expected you to look. I would have thought you look great tonight. And I just wanted to tell you, I was like, when he came backstage, like a minute or two ago, I was just like, man, your skin is glowing. You're just looking like just healthy.
Well, listen, I would love to take some kind of credit for that, but the truth is, obviously, it's late for me, and you guys stream late, and I'm up, I've been up, I'm tired, but so I got to give this to Laura, which is my wife, for those who don't know, during election season leading up to 24, and I honestly, Joe, it was like 2016 rolled into 24. And I just didn't get a break. It was like one election season, and I gained weight, and I was, because I was always a little bit of a gym rat, and I gained weight, and I got older. My hair started to get gray. You give your all to your work when you care as much as we do about what we do. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, "Look, honey, you're not getting younger, and you have to learn a little bit to micromanage your time and to set boundaries." So I started, this is what I loved always: play the guitar a little, go to the gym, and then I always, my pre-workouts filled with collagen, my skin feels great. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's all my wife. Look what I'm drinking right now. I drink every one before I go to bed. 30 grams, 20 grams of protein, yogurt. You have to be healthy.
I don't even know what that means. I hear people talk about collagen. I don't even know what that means.
Me either, brother. She's
I
like,
collagen is like the stuff in your skin. I don't like.
Yeah.
So you're drinking that stuff.
Yeah, I mean I got to give a shout out, which normally I don't do this, but he is an amazing guy, Mark Lobliner. You guys may know him from X. He's probably going to be stunned I'm giving him a shout out right now, but every time I've had a question, like, look, Mark, I'm because now I'm 44. And I'm bench pressing almost more than I've ever bench pressed in my life, and when I was in my 30s, I was big. For people who don't know, like, I'm short, but I was a bulky guy. And then the Trump era, I just lost it all, Joe. And I just went down, like, it was just constant work. And I lost it all. And Mark was, I've always asked him, I need a pre-workout. What do you think? I don't want to go to, I'm trying to get back in this. And he's always been just really great. And for guys who are middle-aged guys who are trying to stay fit and want to stay healthy, the guy's a damn inspiration. I mean, he really is. I mean, he entered that contest. He's not a young man, and he looked amazing. So I just want to give him a shout out too, because he's got the best pre-workout ever, which is just, he's the owner of Tiger Fitness. And I got to tell you, I mean, I asked him, I said, look, I feel like I'm plateauing here. What do you suggest I do? And he said, look, take this pre-workout. It just, we just came out with it and it's got a mushroom in it. So you guys really, if you're like serious and you can really do it, I got the blue raspberry mushroom, and it is something, it's not for everyone. But if you're serious and you're trying to expand your potential, I did it. I got it. And man, I'll tell you, now everyone's results are different. But I'll tell you right now, I was benching 20 pounds, 25 pounds more immediately. I mean, like, it was just, the guy he's always had the right advice. And, he's just we have some, I value his opinion because we have similar philosophies. You just got to keep working hard. You just got to outwork the other guy. You know, like what you brought up before, there's a lot of pressure before election season. And I think one of the reasons, there are a few, obviously more than a few, but one of the reasons why we've been more successful in polling is because I outwork everybody. I never stop. I still interview people myself, Joe. No pollster bumps over his employees and goes, let me talk to this guy. Nobody does that. I still do that. I'm not calling India for a call center. We have a different way of doing things, and it's go, and got to apply it, to a positive.
And I have a million questions for you about things that tend to impact elections versus that which doesn't impact elections.
Yeah,
I have a million questions, and I had no idea you were I was going to start you when I started you down this road, this tangent of fitness. I actually had, like 15 years ago, I got very into not 15 years ago, sorry, about 10 years ago, I got very into fitness for like 3 years or so, where I was working out like an animal, and I was like the most jacked Orthodox Jew I knew. And certainly in my 40s, like I was just like, I was going to the gym like 2-3 hours, like 4 times a week. And I was just like, I was really dedicated to it. And then I fell off and I gained weight. And over the last, like this year, I actually lost 40 pounds. And because I looked at myself exactly like you, like when you get older, sometimes you'll pass a mirror and you'll just be like, who the hell are you? Like, what is, like, you're like embarrassed, right? Exactly. So the kick gets into your head, and so I shed 40 pounds off, and we just had a whole series of Jewish holidays. I actually put back on like 10 or 15, but I have the confidence myself. I know, I'm like, okay, you know what? By the time let's say my birthday rolls around, I expect to be in the 180s range. Like now I'm like in the low 200. But I know that I have the capacity to do it. It's a matter of just actually pushing yourself and staying dedicated to it, and really just keeping your mouth closed,
Yeah.
But power to you, and I give you a blessing that you should continue looking great for the next 8 decades. Keep running strong, brother. So, but I do want to get into some of the topics, and I want to start off with the very topic that I hit you up on when I first asked you to come on the show. And that was this Ben Shapiro post, which garnered a great deal of controversy. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the post, we're just going to watch the post together, and I'll share with you what Rich wrote, which I was a little surprised by his take. And this is the clip right here.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities. If you're a young person and you...
So that was the clip to which Rich responded with this, where he wrote, let me just make this a little bigger. Sorry about that. He wrote, I'm honestly still laughing about this. It's so hilarious because it's such an incredibly dumb statement made by someone presented as smart. It's not, he's not, They're crooked.
He's not a smart guy.
Sorry, not the crooked. That I want to correct this. They're cooked, is what you wrote.
They're cooked. Yeah.
Right. So, which you weren't accusing him of lacking integrity. You were just saying that they're stupid and they're going to lose.
Yeah.
So I want to start with this first and foremost. Do you still stand by this position that it was a stupid statement?
100%. And I'll add this too, which is he once upon a time, which he also brought up in this interview, said that, retirement is a dumb idea. All right. And listen, it's this idea that, I'm just going to work until I'm 65. And then, I'm just entitled to get the rest of this money until, the next 20, 30 years until I die. First of all, I just want to start and preface this all by saying, of course, I intellectually understand where Ben Shapiro is coming from. And I even wrote in Our Virtuous Republic, which was a book I wrote years ago. Don't go buy it. It don't matter. I'm not over here pitching it. But it was based on a thesis about, it's wonky, but it was my thesis, which is that the less virtuous we become in this country, the more of a role the government will serve in our society, and that becomes even more personal. So in other words, the less virtuous we become, the larger government grows. And in that, I'll be honest, I argued that the idea or the concept of retirement was a progressive idea. Okay, so before the progressive era, what was introduced as what we know now to be Social Security, but in the beginning, it was old age insurance. They used to sell it like that. All right. It was not a thing, guys. It was not a thing. The country was built on several foundational views, one of which is the Protestant ethic. And the Protestant ethic is you work because God wants you to work and he wants you to prosper, and not because of you're going after greed, which is something that I think is sad that we got off track because capitalism has suffered because of it. The concept and the popularity of capitalism has suffered. But in the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, as Weber laid it out, is not that you're doing it because, you're pursuing greed or mammonism. You're pursuing it because you're supposed to be stable. And then in turn, you should be also pursuing, you want to be a man of virtue. So in turn, you're going to get yourself to a place where you can help your fellow neighbor in any way you can. And whatever, it becomes a stronger society, a stronger first community, and then a stronger society, stronger state. A stronger state leads to a stronger nation, right? And this is how they believed it. So I understand intellectually where he's coming from. My point is, as now I'm putting my public opinion pollster hat on, we're beyond that. The time to conserve the ideas that Ben Shapiro was talking about was 40 years ago. They failed to do it. They grossly failed to do it. And now he's saying, you know what? If you can't live in the 5 boroughs anymore, you should just get up and leave. And he was specifically talking about New York, and the country was built off of this. Well, Joe, we're not living in freaking far and away anymore. All right. This isn't Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman or whatever her name was, right? Where we can't just get up and make off to the Ohio territory and stick a stake in the ground. These people don't have the money to leave. And this is why Ben Shapiro and Con Inc., which is, I'll call them that because it is a scam. It has always been a scam. The Heritage Foundation, which, guys, I love you. They get mad at me for saying this. I know a lot of them over there, but you just pay each other and get all these donor money to write papers and invite each other to these parties where you all slurp on lobster tails together, but you don't actually win any votes. And because you've done this for way too long, the left has steadily marched and won this long-term battle. So when Ben comes out there and says, you know what, it's the history of the country. Well, again, tell that, to Tom Cruise. You're living in ancient history. Young people are going to either vote for people who have solutions for their problems now and won't tell them, just leave New York. You can't afford it. Just leave. And then there's a second part of this. They're either going to vote for that on the right because the right has a populist solution to that, or they're going to vote for Mamdani. And that's what happened. And you can call him a jihadist, an anti-Semite. People just didn't care, Joe. They just didn't care. What they cared about was that they couldn't pay their bills. And this time, these intellectual debates are great, but I poll these people every day. They don't care about any of that anymore. It's like the hour is way too late. And this is Ben Shapiro. I honestly would not be surprised if in 5, maybe 10 years, Ben Shapiro is nothing. He has no audience at all. He's declining. He's filled with bots. I mean, his follower count, it's a joke. I don't want to get into it, but come on. He's on the way down, and horrible people are on their way up. And it's because he never had a solution. And then this is let me say this, Joe, real quick. My second problem with what he's saying is that far and away, unlike Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, we have nowhere left to run. I am from the 5 boroughs. My family left originally, not so much because of the cost of living, although The Last of Us finally did last year because he's retiring and he just couldn't stand Queens anymore. It was just not as comfortable.
Where in Queens? Where in Queens?
I don't want to blow them all up, but yeah,
I grew up in Queens. That's why
my uncle was a Queens guy. I
grew up in Flushing, so that's why I was.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so very close. Yeah. Right? I mean, so he finally left and said, "It's not that I can't stay here; it's just that I can do better in Jersey, where it's a little cheaper, and I can be near my grandkids." But the rest of us left because more of, I would say, more of freedom stuff. Right? Honestly, we all liked having guns and stuff. That is always, we were just Italians and, working class Italians. And it was not only about money. And we were part of that Italian exodus in the 80s and the 90s that left and went to the burbs of New Jersey. Right. But I would say, there's Ben's idea, his concept leads to running up against a wall. We're at that point now. It's not the country it was 100 years ago, where what he's saying is practical. We're now in a place where if you leave and you don't fight, and think about what he's suggesting. Don't fight for your home. Don't don't live where your roots are. Just run.
Right, well, you're starting to fly a little bit afield here. So you're covering a few different areas.
Yeah, there is just like 3 elements to this. But
I really want to break down here. We need to start first and foremost. Are we looking at Ben Shapiro as a podcast who was just talking about like the notions of what conservatism are in his opinion versus him being a speaker for the Republican Party or reflecting what the Republican Party is? I think that you were taking him as basically you're a spokesman for the Republican Party. And as a spokesman of the Republican Party, if you're going to tell candidates that this is a message that they should say, you're going to lose and you're going to die. And to the extent you're saying that, I agree. I agree, because I think that the masses they don't want to hear some politician getting up there and making a statement like this, even if it were true. Even if it is true. Yes. 100% true. They just don't want to hear that, right? It's not a message they want to hear. So so Ben Shapiro as a potential candidate for office, I'd be like, you're dumb, you're an idiot, you're gonna go down in flames. You're not even gonna win a primary, much less win a general election, because people are not gonna want to hear that type of messaging. That's a different thing. That's a different thing from saying what is conservatism really founded on, and what is a healthy way for you, the viewer, to actually look at your life. That's a whole different thing. That's a whole different perspective. Because what he said actually resonated with me to the extent that, hey, I was married 8 years. I was outgrowing my apartment. I looked around my neighborhood and I was like, what can I get here? And I was like, oh, nothing. I can't afford anything here in Queens. So then I started looking in other neighborhoods, which were cheaper. I decided to move. First of all and foremost, if you look at it in context, he's definitely not saying the way some of the woke right like portraying it, that he's saying leave the country. He's saying find a more economical part of the country.
That's true.
And I think that a lot of the Ben Shapiro haters are trying to say, oh, you see, he has no real loyalty to the country. He wouldn't fight for our country. And, that's why he's saying, if you don't have my kind of money, pack up and move. And they turned it very easily into something that was basically, he's an elitist who looks down on others who don't have money and says, screw you, you can't afford it here, leave. When really I looked at it that it's something I could see myself saying to someone who called into my show. And I'd be like, hey, look, why do you have to live in this city? I grew up in Queens. I looked at New York as my home. But at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I can't live here. So I moved to Jersey and I'm much happier here. And it's not like a matter of like that block I grew up on and that neighborhood is the neighborhood I have to move back to. Like I find a neighborhood that's more economical, build my own roots there. And if my children can afford to live here, fine. And if they can't, they're going to live somewhere else. even though they grew up here. In fact, none of them so far. I have 3 kids who are married off. None of them are living in town, and I don't expect that any of them are necessarily going to live here. That is the nature of how society operates. So that's why I say, if you look at Ben Shapiro as a potential political candidate, I agree with you. It's a dog message. It's a loser. You're an idiot if you try sending it out there. But if it's something that you're giving advice to fellow conservatives as far as how they should be looking at themselves, or how people in society, if they have a healthy perspective, should be looking at themselves, to me, what he's saying makes a great deal of sense. And I'm wondering if you thought about those two distinctions depending on how you look at Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, I have. And I mean, honestly, I disagree with him on both fronts, even though that it may be because in my own family experience, we did not leave because of cost of living situations, right? We left because we had disagreements over the direction that New York was going. I mean, most of my family, we were 5-borough, animals, but we still like to hunt whitetail in the winter, right? And turkey. And so it was just like crazy. We'd go upstate, we go past Bear Mountain, and that's how we were. After a while, it was, and you know this from living in New York, it was impossible to bring certain firearms back to the 5 boroughs and you put them into safes, and it just got ridiculous. So that was part of it. I would say this though, practically, Joe, think about what he's saying. He is saying, and that if you can't stay there, then you should leave. My argument to that is we have been doing that. It's called voting with your feet, right? So you wind up taking off and you go to another place, and people like me, for the last probably since 2010, there's been a lot of study in my field about whether voting with your feet turns certain states different colors based on where they're coming from. Yeah. So if you're leaving New York and you're going to Florida, does it mean New Yorkers are voting blue in Florida necessarily? And honestly, I mean, that's a whole other topic, which I'd love to get into.
No, but I think that this is, I'm happy to get into that with you this evening, because I think that's a really interesting question. All these Californians going to Texas, is that really turning it bluer, or is it the Republicans from California are fleeing and it's actually turning it redder? Because
there was a very short period of time when you were seeing, I don't want to say opportunities by professional class people to go to places where their industries may have good paying jobs and it's cheaper to live. So in the very beginning, you could see blue state voters who vote blue going to red states and somewhat adding to the blue votes. But that was largely blown out of proportion. The truth is, state to state migration has greatly benefited the Republican Party. So, and this is something I remember back in, 2018, when Ted Cruz almost lost his Senate seat to Beto O'Rourke. There were a whole bunch of people arguing it's because of all of these Californians who came to Texas and now they're voting for Beto. That's not true. If those Californians did not leave California and move to Texas, you would have Senator O'Rourke right now. And you could see it in the exit polls. It's not debatable. So what we wound up finding over the last 20 years, 20 years ago, let's talk about the financial crisis, which really facilitated a lot of people moving around the country. It has benefited red states and red voters more so than what you might have heard or seen on Twitter. The truth is, Florida did not become red. I'm glad we're not in the 2024 primary anymore, because if I said this, I would get a whole bunch of hate mail from DeSantis's followers. But DeSantis did not turn Florida red. That's a joke. The Florida was becoming red over a very long period of time. It was something that was going on since 2010 specifically, and then it accelerated over the years. In fact,
I would say it's the exact opposite. I think the redness of Florida created DeSantis. Because
100%. Yes.
Because DeSantis, if you look at the first 2 years before he had a supermajority, he had no accomplishments at all. He came in in 2018, right? And he had no accomplishments at all. And then he got his supermajority. And when they came in and the Florida legislature turned bright red in January of 2021, right as Trump was leaving, he started implementing one MAGA policy after another and quickly became the most popular active MAGA person in the country without any doubt. But that's because Florida was sufficiently red that they had that voting block that he could basically say, all right, your DEI is gone. Your protesters blocking streets, gone. All this trans crap in schools, gone. Fight with Walt Disney about their stuff, and the entire state's on his side. Remove their special districting. One thing after another, he was racking up win after win after win, and became the I guess the de facto leader of MAGA, in that he's leading with legislation that is most MAGA oriented throughout for anyone in the country. Abbott would follow behind, and he would do like a watered down version of whatever DeSantis did to sort of be like, hey, me too, I'm also sort of MAGA. Right?
Yes.
Right? But the
Look
only
at
reason,
me.
but he didn't build that because he convinced people you need to be red. He wisely took and did well in the role as someone who, hey, everyone around me is agreeing with this, and I can now implement policies that's going to make them all happy. And that was the only corner in the country. But it was the redness of Florida that creates DeSantis and the legacy of DeSantis, rather than DeSantis turning it red. That's how, to me, it looked. But
very true. I mean, very true. I mean, and again, years ago when the nomination was going on, that was something controversial if you tried to bring it up, no matter what you said, including, by the way, it wasn't until 2022 where Miami-Dade actually had a negative population growth for the first time in years. Rick Scott it was booming under Rick Scott. Donald Trump, when he was president from 17 to 20, obviously, doing the different, 21, of course, but he was bringing in a lot of, and they did this under the radar, Joe. They brought in a lot of Venezuelans, and nobody saw it coming. And I remember telling Robert Barnes, hey, Robert, look at this, because we would run these voter file analysis, and I didn't know it was happening. And we would run them, and the ethnicity would be, it's an attribute attached to the voter file model we have. And we would see 20,000 Venezuelans, 40,000 Venezuelans, 60,000. And the hell is this? Nobody knew what was going on. And I remember Nate Cohen from the New York Times polled it, and he found Trump's approval was like 52% in Florida, where everybody else, it was like 38, 40, right? And he's like, I don't know what's going on, but in South Florida, Trump's approval is just very strong, and it's propping him up. And I knew what it was at the time. It was these Venezuelans were coming up, setting up enclaves, adjacent to Cuban communities. And they were just living their best lives, MAGA like crazy, in the heat, in the sun, in the palm trees. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this is going to come out of nowhere, and no one's going to see this in 2020. And sure as hell that happened. And he won Florida kind of easy. 4 years later, we saw what happened. But DeSantis was the benefactor of that. He was. And COVID, of course, from New York, getting back to what Ben said, when COVID happened, there was a certain group of people who could stay in parts of New York, especially in the 5 boroughs, right? Yeah, well, some boroughs you're stuck in, and you know that, and we both know that. Others, you have the luxury of being able to move out in Queens, right? Manhattan, other areas like that. If you want to leave, you can leave. Right. But if you're in the Bronx, if you're in Brooklyn,
you can't move.
You can't move. And this is what I don't think. And this is getting back to what Ben said. Some people can't go anywhere. And look, he represents, and this is why I think his viewership is dying, and his voice and his influence is dying. He represents an old thinking like this, when being a conservative was a luxury, and people who were attracted to America First were not attracted to it because they were particularly conservative, and they understood the logic that follows in these arguments, right? That you have in the pages of National Review, or and some of which is obviously worth reading. Obviously, they don't care, but they're surviving, Joe, right? And they're thinking, I couldn't call a U-Haul truck if I wanted to get out of here. Right. And so to say things like that, I think hopefully 20, 30 years from now, maybe we'll look back on this if we're alive, you or I. But 20, 30 years from now, we'll look back at this and we'll say, God, it was tough in America back then. And we were debating stuff like this.
I'm just the opposite on that perspective, by the way. I think
Yeah.
these are the good old days. I think that
Well,
it's
I'm
too
saying
rare for people
hopefully.
to I think it's too rare for people to actually
Yeah.
appreciate the good old days. When you were in the good, whatever you think of as being the good old days, trust me, when you were there, you didn't think they were the good old days.
Yeah.
And I'm actually trying to change. I'm actually trying to change that, where people
The
actually,
Clinton era.
yeah, just appreciate, all the blessings that you have today and recognize just how much worse it could be. And just try to pick some time, any time in history, and put yourself there and ask yourself, if you were in this location that time, is it really that much better? Are you sure it's that much better than where you're at right now? And likely the answer, if you're being realistic, is no, it's probably not.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that people all too often lament their current situation and romanticize their previous situation. But I think you made a point that I hadn't really considered about. I mean, I definitely agree with you that he does represent Con Inc. He represents the old school neocon perspective, that he's much more in favor of trusting America in its motivations for going to war. He's much more about America taking that policeman role on the international stage than I think most Republicans today would agree with. I think that MAGA has created this shift away towards more libertarian type of, like, this is not our business, it's not our fight, leave us alone. And I agree with you on that. And I myself I've seen that shift in my own perspective. Meaning, back in after 9/11, I was all America F yeah, and kind of resentful of that song when it came out in Team America World Police as to how it was mocking
Oh, me
it.
too. Me too.
I recognized the song was funny, but at the same time, I took resentment at it because I was just like, no, we are great. We are,
We watched it in the military, Joe.
Yeah.
We were all like, you know what? F this. But then we all laughed at it. But we didn't, we're very much agreeing like you.
You want to know why? Because you grew up with Rocky IV and America defeating Russia and Drago and
Hulk Hogan.
And yes, exactly.
We did a whole show on this. Exactly. Yeah.
So we grew up with the perspective that America represents everything pure, good, and true. And everyone who's against that is obviously 1000% evil. And right?
Yes. I tried to get people to understand this in the show after Hulk Hogan died, after Terry died. I said, look, I don't think you understood what it was like to grow up like us. Let me show you. And I went through the whole thing, Joe. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
And then over the last, I would say, it really happened sometime during the Obama era, probably fairly early in the Obama era. It's like I started having a lot more questions about the legitimacy of wars that we're in. To me, I started recognizing that domino theory, which was the logic that motivated the Korean and Vietnamese wars.
Missive Empire, Jack Snyder.
Was complete and total retardation, and that we were completely in the wrong for going in there. And especially as Americans, we should have recognized, hey, why are you so afraid of communism in another country? That all it is another opportunity for it to fail elsewhere, and for us. And for us to actually point out, look how much better capitalism is because it failed over here in Korea and it failed in Vietnam. There's nothing. Why are you afraid of that? Like, why are you interceding there unless it's, the big military industrial complex wants to try and basically raise money, and you start seeing all the poison corruption in our own governance where they're basically lining their own pockets and giving money to Raytheon and one big military company after another and getting these massive contributions from them. And they have this spin cycle where they take our taxpayer money and dish out billions, trillions to the mightiest of a military machinery building in the world, and they get these really massive kickbacks, and they're able to stay in office for 40 years, like a Chuck Schumer. And it doesn't matter whether you're blue or you're red. It doesn't matter, you're putting on a blue tie if you're on if you live on one of in the Northeast or on the coast. You're putting on a red tie if you're in Middle America, but you're the exact same animal in a different colored tie.
Yeah. Bob Menendez. Look what happened to him. Bob Menendez, unbelievable, enriching himself the way he did. And, I think back to, and probably maybe some of the younger folks who watch this, they don't remember this, but years ago, guys, we used to look at, I mean, I heard you say, well, why wouldn't have we just watched it? The domino theory was garbage. It would have made a much stronger argument. Do you remember the videos and the pictures they used to show us of North and South Korea from space when we started getting satellites in orbit, folks? I mean, this is early, I would say early 90s, around that time.
I don't remember this. No, I wasn't as much into politics back then.
The lights were off. The lights were off. And it was one of the most compelling arguments for capitalism that you could even make, was just to show a young person, this is what it looks like in the communist world. And look at the lights, you can, from space, see the cities are bustling. You can see prosperity as glimmering little, like almost stars in and of themselves from the heavens, looking down on Earth. And if we would have not believed the domino theory, which was joke and bunk, and in my book club on Locals, we read Myths of Empire by Jack Snyder, and a myth is the domino theory. If we don't stop them over there, the dominoes will fall, and communism will just keep coming over here. It's of course bogus, guys. It's bogus. If that would have continued, and we would have allowed this to happen. I mean, China's one of our biggest enemies. If we didn't go in and give them, favored status and rescue them from themselves. And I know what Nixon was trying to do. That really started back in Nixon with détente. I know what he was trying to do, but if we would have just, and the older I get, the more of a realist I become. We're an insular power. We have, vast bodies of oceans to the east and west, and we have weaker but also allied nations somewhat to the north and south. It's very hard to attack us. We could have just done our thing, and it would have been the most powerful argument in the world to just watch what happens to these other countries instead of exporting our wealth, our jobs, our futures, our dreams. We exported our dreams and our hopes, and to these people, and for what? And we should just let it happen, Joe. We should have just, and I understand. I remember George Bush, who was a frequent visitor of the military in his presidency. He went everywhere, especially with what I did in the military.
You're talking Herbert. You're talking the father.
I'm talking about W, okay. Because he ran as we can't get involved in the world wars. Do you remember? That's part of what you were America's World Police. They made fun of him for being a hypocrite because, of course, he ran in 2000 as he was not a neocon. He was not an interventionist. He said he won New Hampshire for the first time for a Republican since Reagan because Bush lost the caucus. He ran it as a Republican and won it because he said, we cannot run around and be the world's police and do all of this. And people believe that. He put together the Ross Perot coalition, which had vaporized after his dad, which is why the Republicans could not win the presidency until he did that. And he turned their back on it. But I remember he was a frequent visitor of certain programs in the military. A lot of military people he would go and see. And people asked him, and I'll never forget something. Somebody had said, what happened to not being the world's police, sir? What are we doing? Because at that time, and to give people context, they were pivoting from Afghanistan to Iraq. And people thought the job wasn't done in Afghanistan. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, son, we have to care about the condition. We have to care about the human condition of other people around the world. And at that time, Joe, I thought, that sounds admirable. But at the time, I thought it's admirable. Maybe we do. I don't know. I'm just
it was also a very different time.
It was
because after 9/11, we all came together.
2 years after 9/11, when
we were still looking to sort of flex that to remind people they came here and tried stepping on us there was. Let's remind people why it is you don't mess with America and completely obliterate them. And Americans came together and felt a sense of unity unlike anything I felt before or since. And Barack Obama really worked very hard to sow as much division as possible, insinuating that anyone who disagreed with him was racist or had some.
He killed us, Joe.
He destroyed this country.
He killed us. I don't know how more people who do what I do don't speak up and don't say this. he did things to this country that have never been done before, and you can see it in the data. When you ask about economic confidence, all of a sudden it's a political question, and that's before it became clear that, political or professional class voters were more favorable to Democrats and there was a realignment going on. I'm not talking about that. Even during the Obama years, he polarized us so bad that voters, people were interviewing, adults who aren't even voters, they couldn't answer a simple question about the economy. How do you feel about your personal income? How do you feel about the jobs market? Everything became political. He did this to us in a way that had never been manifested in the United States before. And we haven't come back from that. And it's worse.
Where now it's and this is what ended up happening. Now it's not a matter of what the person is saying. It's just a matter of who the person saying it is.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. And Chuck Schumer, he can do a complete 180 6 months apart as to like how we can never close the government to we have to keep it closed because and it's just a matter of who's saying it. And if I like this guy, it's fine. And you saw it where you go man on the street, you read him a quote. And they say, is this a quote you agree with? And they don't know the answer unless you tell them who said it. And if Barack Obama said it, it's amazing and it's genius. And if it's Trump that said it, it's the most evil thing ever. And they'll mix up the quotes and say it backwards, and they'll be like, oh, okay, no, I disagree with it now. They'll do a 180 because it's all identity politics of I like this person, I hate this person, and it's not just people on the left. People on the right too.
Oh no. Right. Yeah. Oh, look, that first started honestly with people on the right. And we knew this from our poll. Look, I'm going to get a lot of, hate tweets, right? But it's true. In the Obama era, when we would ask people about provisions in Obamacare, they were wildly popular. Protections for pre-existing conditions was number one, right? Obviously, way and away. But if you said, now this is part of Obamacare, they would change their opinion immediately.
Right.
And then we did see that in the Trump era. We would ask people, do you support a physical barrier at the U.S. southern border to protect against illegal immigration or something like that? People would overwhelmingly support that. And then if you followed up and you said, what about Trump's wall? And then all these Democrats would run and say, no, I don't support. You just said that you supported a physical barrier at the U.S. southern border, and you could see the vote. Oh, they knew it when you confronted them with it, because we've done focus group after focus group about that. We were not like this before Barack Obama. We weren't. He made us into something that is unrecognizable. We had at least a level of intellectual honesty, even among those who were the least credentialed or the least educated. Everybody understood what was essentially a common sense hypocrisy, right? And that's gone now. It's sad, but it's true. It's gone. And I don't know how we get it back, but it is gone.
It's actually very, very tragic.
Tragic.
And so much so that during the shutdown, it's like the Democrats can vote 15 times to shut down the government, which is stopping SNAP, and then basically say Trump is the one who shut the government and he's trying to starve the poor. Yeah. And it's like, it's a matter, and their constituents be like, oh yeah, well, they said it, so it's true, and Trump is evil, so it must be true. And they can't even process a simple thought as to like, how the heck did he shut down the government, and how is he the one who's starving the poor? They critical thinking has been something that's been discouraged and actually scorned in order to basically say, don't trust your lying eyes, just listen to what I tell you and spit it back at me. And like I said, it's not just the left. It's on the right also. I think the Democrats recognize this. They recognize just how powerful that is and how strongly Obama started building this identitarian politics to the point that I don't have to be truthful with you, and especially if I have legacy media, which is going to be repeating whatever crap I tell you as being gospel to you, then you're going to swallow it and you're going to hate the other guy. And if I tell you to hate them, the harder I tell you to hate them, the harder you will. And
yeah, I think you just said something that's important. The repetition People always say, but Rich, why do they believe the media? Because the trust in media is in an all-time low. Everyone says they don't care. Folks, it's the repetition. I go to the gym. We were just talking at the beginning of the show. We have MSNBC, Fox News, CNN. It's all lined up. You're not even listening, but you are listening. It's subliminal, even if you don't realize it. And you're reading a paper, and whether you're glancing at it or you go and actually pay for it at the stand and walk away, or you subscribe to it, you're clicking on social media, you're seeing the headlines. You don't have to deep dive into the article. You're still seeing it. So even though people don't trust the media, they don't. If it's repeated over and over and over and over, it becomes true, or it at least becomes, believable, no matter what your political persuasion is. And I got to tell you, even during the shutdown, we had, there's a lot of people in my community who know who I am, and we're involved. We have kids, and people were coming up to parents who were in my son's, I'm at a football game, high school football game, Joe. And they're like, I'm so sorry to bother you. I just want to ask you, can you tell me what's going on with the shutdown? Like, whose fault is it really? And am I going to get my whatever check? So this happened to me a lot, guys, a lot. And even if they didn't have a check, maybe they didn't know what the truth was, and they wanted to know, why is this happening? Right.
No one, and it's so hard to even find the truth. I sit there and when I'm reading through stories, whether it's coming from Fox, which is not nearly as based as people like to pretend it is, or legacy media, I'm sitting there, I'm going through these different sources, and I'm like, what are they trying to get me to believe, and what nuggets here can I actually trust are actually accurate, and try and bear down into the core of what are they actually telling me, and then I'll look at how they'll frame what they're telling me and try and focus what's the nugget of actual quote that they're giving me, and then they extrapolate out from that, like we see with this Epstein thing, right?
Yeah,
where it's like one email after another of a guy who Trump is famous for, destroying, trying to destroy his life in 2014, talking to all these victims' attorneys. And now in 2018, we get emails from him in 2018 bashing Trump as being, that he says Trump is evil. And it's like, when the most evil man calls you the most evil man, what does that say about you? Well, it says you're a great person, but because that's what it really is saying. But they basically are able to portray it as like he's even more evil than Epstein. And there's no critical thinking at all that's happening there. And it's very, very, but the point is, in order to actually come to a conclusion, you have to look at the source material and how reliable is the source material, and then try to piece things together. And unfortunately, the younger generation has actually been trained to just memorize what's been told to you, not to think it through. So they're not trained to actually sit there and try and dissect things. And if all you're taught is to memorize, you're not engaging in critical analysis, then you're just memorizing what's being repeated over to you, over and over to you. That's all you're really doing, as opposed to actually dissecting, well, how did you come to these conclusions you're giving me?
Okay. No, go ahead.
No, so I just think, like, I agree with you. How this gets fixed, I'm not sure. But this was purposeful. I think that the situation our country is in was purposefully set up.
Too. Oh, yes. Me too.
To basically dumb down the American into just being a parrot of whatever is being thrust upon them.
Joe, you have to go and look at some of those emails and look at the dates, and then say, wait a minute, Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein is telling them, I'm going to be at this event tonight with so-and-so, 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 and Trump, right? And you have to go and look up that date and say, wait a minute, Donald Trump wasn't with him that night. Donald Trump was over here. People aren't doing that, right? Which is, by the way, why I was so hard on Donald Trump at the time. And we can go back and rewind.
What you're saying came up just today, by the way. This was the Democrats. The Democrats put out new documents show Donald Trump spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017. At the time, Trump was already president, and Epstein was already a convicted sex offender. And they had this whole stupid exchange here saying, "Where are you having Thanksgiving?" Which is
there it is,
and it's not even Trump talking. I don't even know what the heck they're just claiming as far as what's going to be with Trump. And if you look up Trump's schedule, he was nowhere near him, and nothing to do with it.
You can actually look it up, but the point is most people won't. And this is why I was so hard on Trump at the time, for two reasons. One is, I mean, they did this to themselves. Nobody made Epstein an issue more than the right leading up into, first of all, it started with Hillary Clinton. It did. And then Epstein was arrested. And when Epstein was arrested, people said, the right harnessed it. And they said, it's only because Donald Trump is president that this would ever have happened. And by the way, I do believe that. But going into Trump's presidency, a second term, Pam Bondi was all over Fox News. I mean, we don't have to rehash this. The people who are Donald Trump's like almost sycophant loyalists, right? Who think they're doing him a service by constantly being like I call them clapping seals, right? You're not helping him at all because you led him into a trap, right? His advisors led him into it. This was the most predictable move by Democrats I've seen in a very long time.
Which move? Be specific.
How they were going to do this. They were going to selectively get a hold of they were going to get a hold of these documents. They were going to selectively leak them out of context. And Donald Trump, his administration, whether it was him or not, I know that the withholding is coming straight from him. It is. So, but in the beginning, we had the binder part 1. Do you remember that?
The humiliating. Oh, look at me. I'm special. I got the binder.
Yeah. I mean, you got Benny Johnson out there invited there. This was dumb. And then they're all attacking Benny because he said, wait a minute. You told me to come here and you told me this was happening. And now you're giving me a hard time because I'm simply trying to hold you to account. All Donald Trump had to do.
Leading up to Cash and Dan Bongino saying Epstein didn't kill himself. Trust me, bro. He didn't
trust me, bro.
Yeah, trust me, bro. It's almost like they were hand selected to be the puppets to tell us that because they knew that MAGA trusted them more than anyone else, arguably even more than Trump. That we take what they say very literally. We know with Trump, you don't take what he's saying literally all the time. And he's going to be engaging in hyperbole. We know that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are probably the two voices of MAGA who are more trusted than anybody, that whatever they're telling us is going to be accurate. So for them to come out and say, trust me, bro. And the tweet I put out about Dan Bongino at the time was Dan Bongino, the podcaster, would be mocking Dan Bongino, the assistant director. And everyone was like, yeah, obviously.
Come on. How could you? This is a guy who is a former Secret Service. He had all that experience. He was talking about the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. Something stinks here. How could you have the only line of sight to the president completely unguarded or unpoliced? And then now he's, just move on. We there's nothing here, bro. Like nobody, there's nothing else to this story, bro. Right. I mean, nobody believes this. And I kind of, there's 10, just for people who maybe they don't have obviously the insight that maybe we have or talk to the people we have. They have 18 different stories for why Donald Trump has taken the tack that he has taken. I have settled on what I think. I don't, I have my own views, but
what are your views? I want to hear this. I want to hear why do you think he's not releasing it?
I think that I'm going to go with the more logical thing here. I just think that he handled it horribly. Which is part you can see in these dumps. There are people in there that the FBI and the Justice Department are disgustingly corrupt. There are people in these documents that may be the lines between victim and perpetrator could be blurred really bad here, Joe, right? So look, Guthrie is a perfect example, right? She's in here and the Democrats left her name out, even though we all know, with the exception of Prince Andrew, everything else she's basically said is bull. It's a total lie. She's recanted it. Now for folks who know she's not around to tell us whether or not what she said in those in those statements or what they're referring to in those documents are legitimate anymore, or whether she still stands by them. Very fortunate for them, she's not around anymore. All Donald Trump had to say was, guys, this department is dirty. The FBI is dirty. The Justice Department is dirty. These files are all jacked up. They're the product of dirty people. It's going to take us a while to go through them and to make sure that we don't harm innocent people with unfounded allegations. Give us some time. In the meantime, let's pivot to make your life better. They didn't do that. And what did he say? And I quote, you know what? And I remember, I don't want to bring up too many, dark stuff here, but I remember talking to Charlie about this not a few days before he passed. And I remember talking to him before he was murdered. And I remember talking to him at the time, and we were polling it. And he was so worried about the youth in the coalition because they were not hardcore Republicans, guys. They weren't diehard Trumpers. These were voters who weren't even dating the Republican Party. They were flirting with them, and you needed to make sure that you earned their trust. And they were Epstein was just like this proxy issue for holding the rich accountable, holding the powerful accountable, holding the dirty accountable. And they didn't even care that much, Joe, about Epstein. They just wanted something this time to be different. And I understand the president was frustrated. He wanted people to, to be more concerned or focused on his achievements. But that post, you know what? I don't want your support anymore. That post, every poll we conduct, we talk to a young Trump voter who says, and I'm going to say any dirty words, but these days, folks, Americans are truly colorful in their interviews. And we talk to young voters all the time, Trump voters, who they will cite that moment and they will say, you know what? All I wanted was something different out of this administration. He told me he doesn't want my support anymore. So you know what? I called his bluff. He doesn't have it. I strongly disapprove. That's what they'll do during the interview. And then everybody wonders like, oh, well, what a panic-in. What's your problem? You blew the chance to have a 30-year coalition because you didn't take criticism, Joe. I mean, or constructive criticism. The president never apologizes. Never. I'm not sure that's what he needs to do, but he does need to come out and recognize that he grossly mishandled this. And I'm, you know what? I hear you. What happened to that guy? I hear your voice. What happened to him? Do you remember that? Come on. I'm sure you were around for that. I hear your voice. I am your voice.
What's so frustrating, like when we were going through that period, I'm telling you, it felt like when you have, your favorite football team is in a tight game and there's a pick six where the defender is running down the sideline and he starts celebrating at the 10-yard line and he's swinging that ball around and he just flings it into the crowd before he crosses the goal line. A stupid unforced error. And you're like, what the F is wrong with you? Why would you do this? What are you thinking? You just think for 1 second about what you're doing. That was this unforced error. There was no reason for it. It was terrible. It was disastrous. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing that I have to stand like, am I supposed to defend this? Am I supposed to sit here and say that this is okay?
I'm so glad. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I just want to know when you're done.
No, go ahead. You can jump.
I just want to bring up to people who are diehard Trump supporters, and especially if you're older, because there's this big thing going on right now between, if you're 50 and older or below 50, you see things very differently. I just want you to try to understand for a second what it is to be an 18 to 49, but particularly an 18 to 29-year-old Trump voter who spent a year talking about how Trump made being a Republican cool again. And he was OG and he was gangster, right? And he was going to, look, this guy's got 91 felony counts. He knows how it is. He's going to come in and he's going to wreck this all. And I'm not voting for heels up Harris, you stupid fools. Try to put yourselves in their position and try to think now how hard it is for them to justify in their circles that they supported him when he ended up doing what essentially, and I know Trump supporters hate it when I say this, but he's at this point, it doesn't have to end this way, but at this point, he is going down the road of Barack Obama. I promise you hope. I promise you change. And then within 9 months, you realize there is certainly no hope for real change, right? And you just feel like a fool as a young voter. And you just feel like I'm so disenfranchised. And if you ever do vote again, maybe you'll vote for the other party. But chances are you probably just won't vote again. Think about what it's like to be a young black man who told his aunt, who's still the civil rights mindset, right, of the Democratic Party, Auntie, I love you, but you're in a different world. It's a different time. I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. I'm going with my man Trump. He's going to make things better. And you know what? Look at how they're coming after him. He's oppressed like they've oppressed us, and he's going to do something about it. Think about what it feels like to be that young black man right now, Joe. And you're like, they freaking betrayed us. You know, I mean, that's how they feel. And if you're a Trump supporter who's still waving your red hat and you don't see anything wrong with what's going on, then I'm sorry, but you're in this tiny ass little minority still. Nothing has been smashed. Republicans are still the same old Republican Party they were before. You got the big, beautiful bill done. Big deal. Did they reform the jurisdiction? The District of Columbia, right? And you're a lawyer, Joe. You know the problems we've been dealing with being able to get justice in certain jurisdictions. Did they deal with any of that? Did they even try? No. So immediately that is off the table with those voters, right? Unless they do something historic and do it in the second year, which is very not like Congress when they're running for re-election. Did they smash up Big Pharma and make it so Pfizer and Moderna and whomever cannot hide behind the law because they pumped out a dangerous product that killed and or hurt severely a loved one of themselves? Right?
We're going to walk carefully there. We'll walk carefully on that one.
They remove exemptions for certain companies for certain products.
Certain types of products from those
guys.
Yes.
I mean, this is what people wanted, Joe. This is what they wanted.
To me, the obvious remedy for that would be to abolish the filibuster. And I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about your thaughts on that.
And I have some inside stuff I could share with you. But go ahead.
I definitely want to hear. Let me run through the super chats real quick that we have so far, and because I don't want to. They've been building up for like the last hour. So can we know the name of the collagen drink and pre-workout drink?
So there's a place around here called Craze Nutrition. Her name is Brooke. I did a video with her. She's a wonderful woman. You can get, and do I have it around here? I don't, but it's Craze Nutrition. If you were to look it up, I'm sure you would be able to find it. And there is this in like a commercial or something, guys, or whenever Joe's on a rant, I'll go grab it and I'll get you the name of because Laura gets the protein shakes and
why
everything.
Are you so confident there's gonna be a stage where I get to a rant?
You know what? You want to give me a second? I'll go get it. Give me 3 seconds. You want me to get it? I'll get it for you. Okay, give me a second.
Go get it. I'll pull up the other stuff. This guy's full of it. I've packed up, moved across country for a better life multiple times in my life, once with 2 boys and a pregnant wife. Dick, what he's saying is there's certain people who that's a capability for. But I think he was making a fair point when he said, hey, for some people, that's just not an option. For you, yeah, you're able to do it. And I agree with you. And my take is that a lot of people are able to do it. And, you fall into that class and you can move cross country and you can move for a better job or whatever it is or better opportunities. And people do that all the time still today. But his point is you're concerning yourself with the broader electorate. And there is a significant percentage there which do not see themselves as being able to do it. So telling them, hey, if you don't like it, move, is basically flipping them the bird. I think that's.
You remember when Mitt Romney said 47%? Do you remember that comment? Right? Yeah. It's not that it was necessarily wrong. It's just that you can't tell people that when you don't understand the situation. And Dick, I can get up and go move anywhere I want to, but I have to recognize that other people can't. And by the way, I'm not sure if that's your picture or not, buddy, but you're in a certain generation that has has the opportunity to amass more wealth. They have it harder than us, guys. I hate to tell you, but that's what the data shows. It's just true. And
today, you're saying today is financially harder.
Yeah, of course it is, Joe. I mean, it's a matter. This is not really up for debate. Barnes and I went through this entire thing. I'd like 60 images that we went over on Monday's show. When whether it's mortgage debt, whether it's student loan debt, whether it's credit card debt, delinquency, home ownership, average age of home ownership, what the interest rates were. Like, they have it way harder than us. Not only that, job openings, what is qualified workers. Look. The 90s era of free trade had the idea that if we exported our wealth in exchange for cheaper products and we gave them skills that we once upon a time used to have, we could stabilize the world and make it a safer, less war-prone environment. This is something they believed. That is the backbone of neoliberalism. It's the backbone of globalism. This dominated the halls of the State Department. It dominated the halls of foreign policy think tanks and academia all through that time. They were wrong. They miscalculated the impact it would have on the domestic population. And all I'm saying at this point is we have to deal with that. Even though I personally, even the retirement thing that Ben Shapiro said, that is true. This was a modern fabrication. But now we have to recognize that it's been 50 years that we allowed this to permeate in our culture. You can't just upend it now. You can't. And especially not when there's less opportunity than we had. All right. Even me as an older end of the millennial. By the way, it's Herbalife Nutrition. All right.
All right, cool.
Herbalife Nutrition.
Let me finish these chats real quick. At this point, we have graduated too many SJWs directly to Starbucks barrister employment. They've been rising up, upset that their SJW degree equals no real opportunity.
No opportunities. Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. When you were just talking right now, I was actually thinking that could be a really interesting strategy for the Republican Party going forward, and that is to express sympathy for the plight of the millennial class. Express sympathy for how much harder it is for them. Because I will point out one thing that you didn't even mention, which is you and I growing up, we were taught, and it seemed for the most part true, that you go to school, you go to college, you're going to get a job. Especially if you become a lawyer, a doctor, some type of professional, you're going to make your life is set. You're gonna have to work hard. Your life is set. You'll retire at 65, and then you're gonna basically be able to kick your feet up and enjoy your life, and you'll have lots of wealth and lots of assets, and everyone's gonna love you. And that's the American dream that came synonymous with the whole American exceptionalism of Rocky beating Drago. Was also, hey, we are a system here that works, and this system works perfectly, and it's the envy of the world. And today's youth doesn't have that to look to, in large part, I think, because of the insane hiking of the cost of education, which is crippling to anyone who actually goes through the entire system. When you and I were going through school, it was like, we're looking at like $18,000 a year for college. And I mean, the notion that they're paying $50,000-$60,000 a year for college is insane. And so a semester, I don't even know what the heck they're paying. Like it's just the levels of cost for that, where you're basically committing that you're going to be spending the rest of your life paying off your debts, it's asinine, and it builds despair. And that despair is something that the left feeds on and says, and it drives people towards woke ideology, because you feel like you're a loser, you suck, your entire future sucks.
And violence. And
violence. Yes, 100%. It leads you towards despair. It leads you towards violence. It leads you towards thinking that there's no hope here. It leads you to looking for another outlet like socialism, and finding and saying, hey, you need to take care of me because this system does not work. The system, capitalism, is broken. That's what you think. And it really starts, I think, with our education system, which I have an easy fix for the education system that I don't know why it is that this hasn't been employed yet. And the easiest fix in the world is you basically you set up. I don't want to get into detail unless you ask me to get into more detail about it. But the overall,
honestly, you should, because I'll
tell you how to fix education.
Time to do it, because I'm open to hear ideas, because I'm being asked for ideas. So
okay,
I'll give you
the perfect solution. You want the perfect solution? You go to these colleges and you say, okay, look, we understand every state has their own different cost of living and things of that. We get that. It's going to cost different things. But if you look at state colleges, they give us a sort of idea as to, when they're charging their locals, like what they're charging them to come to college.
Yeah.
It gives us some sort of idea as to what the cost of college
in-state tuition.
In-state tuition
Yep.
gives us a thought as to what the actual cost of college is today. And you can set that as a baseline, and you tell these private institutions, the elite institutions, the Ivy League schools, and all of them, you say to them this: look, you're able to charge up to 20% more than your local state in tuition. Not even match them, 20% more, which would be them cutting their tuition in half overnight. I mean, they would have to cut it. And that's what you're doing if you're a not-for-profit company. Because now when you're hiking up tuitions the way you are, that's acting like a profitable company. And if you cannot meet you have to pick your poison, and you say to them, choose your option. You can either be free to charge whatever you want, and that's fine. But if not, we're declassifying you from being a 501c3. And if they get declassified from being a 501c3, they're not going to be getting the same billions in donations from their alumni that they get. They get much more money from donations than they get from tuition. As much as they're getting from tuition, they get much more. They get much more in from benefactors who are just dropping money on them, and it's all tax deductible. So you say, look, if you're acting as a for-profit college, then in that case, you're no longer eligible for 501c3. So either cut your rates or lose your 501c3, and they will all cut their tuition overnight. It'll be shattered in a breath. And I'm telling you right now, it's not fixing the past education debt that was built up by people, but that is how we can start getting to a road of having a viable cost. And the ones who's basically saying, you know what, we're going to keep charging the same amount. Okay, great. Then we get that much more in taxes for whatever it is. Whoever, they're going to lose a lot of donations. We'll get revenue, and we'll use that revenue to offset whatever it is we have to balance out on, an education for other places. To me, this is the perfect way to force colleges to make a choice as to whether they want to actually be a not-for-profit or lose that sainted status that they all has been conferred upon all of them. And I think dangling that potential sword of Damocles over their head will overnight slash the cost of tuition nationwide.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look. I mean, that sounds almost so simple. I mean, it really does. It sounds almost so simple. I feel like I'm missing something, but I mean, that's like a viable, path forward. I just want to give people, because obviously the H-1B visa thing was, has been in the news because of Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham. But even just to give you, because I see some people's comments, I went to college several times. Okay. And when I got out of the Army, I wanted a break, Joe. I got out first, and I did what I do, and I used my brain for numbers, and I ended up in the financial services before the Great Recession, and I did IPOs, and I did money management, and it just, when the financial crisis hit, it gave me a really bad taste in my mouth. I had a big fight with the firm I was in. Lehman Brothers was a big part of it, which I knew was coming at the time. And I said, you know what, honey, I need a break. I'm out, and I need to reassess what I want to do. And when I went back to college, I actually thought, the hell with politics, the hell with financial services. I think I'm going to be a nerd like God intended. And I think I'm going to go to like Embry-Riddle instead of UF, right? Or something like that. And I'm going to, I don't know, design like a rocket. I'll see you on Mars. That's what I was thinking. And I remember getting denied that I had a GI Bill, which was being traded for something at the time called Chapter 31. And vets out there, you may know what I'm talking about. Now there's a 33, I believe. And they just straight told me that I couldn't do that. And Embry-Riddle wanted me, of course. That's what I wanted to do. Plus, I started a pilot's license years before, so I wanted my instruments license and everything, which you could do at Embry-Riddle, which would have been cool. And I would have just been able to relax. I found out later on, or I realized later on, Joe, that they didn't want to give me or allow me. It's not even give me. They simply didn't allow me to go down that route, which funneled me back into first international relations and a program, ironically, the State Department had, and then back into where I am now, which ended up where who I am today. But I never understood it. It made no sense that they would declare those basically not viable career paths until I realized what H-1B visas are. Right. So when I finally realized, because so I've been really quiet about this. I'm going to bring this up on your show for the first time. Like, I'm literally a victim of H-1B visas gone astray. They did not want to pay for a domestic American to do work like that because they knew that they had so many H-1B visas that they had to fill for those programs. And I got screwed. So when you hear somebody like, and not just me, a lot of veterans did, a lot. So when I hear Donald Trump say what he said the other day, it was a lot, because I ended up going to a school where there was probably if it's not the largest, Chinese national intake state university in the country, it's got to be one of the biggest, because that's something else I studied, which I thought was interesting. And I thought it was worth taking advantage of. It was Chinese business and language culture. I remember the head of that program was a wild pain in the butt. She made you go to these things. You have to immerse yourself in the culture and the language in order to really learn it. I realized at the time, this wasn't really necessary. This was like a money maker. It wasn't really necessary. When you hear Trump say, but you don't have talented people, Laura, it's just simply not true. Right. There are people that you can teach them. And for people who said, well, what about now, Rich? He was specifically talking about shipbuilding. Let me ask you something, people. How many shipbuilders did we have before World War II? How in the Ford plants that were converted from car factories to tank factories knew how to assemble an Abrams? Like, they didn't know how to do that. They rapidly learned.
You teach them. Yeah.
Yes, you teach them. We rapidly learned how to do it, Joe. And
I totally disagree with him on the whole H-1B perspective.
He's totally wrong. And then for him to put people down because they expected something else. Right. It's unbelievable. And the voters, you got to see these comments. The voters are like, wait, what the hell is going on? They're totally stunned. They really are, Joe. They're stunned. Like, what happened to this guy? It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Did the reptilians come down and grab Trump and replace him with this thing? What is this? And you can't even blame them. They have no idea what's going on. This is not what he ran on. It's not.
I'm so happy to my favorite guys. Let's go.
Hello.
You know Kimmy? Have you ever seen Kimmy before? She's great.
I do. Kimmy's great. Yeah.
By the way, a lot of people know that she was dealing with a medical condition. She actually called in yesterday and was talking to me about how she had a little bit of a scare about it coming back. But I think I feel comfortable telling you all that I asked her to update me today, and she texted me that thank God she got like the best possible news. So hopefully
that's good to hear, Kimmy. We have missed you, Kimmy.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Your absence has been noticed. We missed you.
She's awesome. The turning point was 2006 when people started to find out Saddam didn't have WMDs. It shattered both local and international trust in the U.S. government. That's a great call, Longreach. That's a great call. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like wait, I didn't even believe it when they said they weren't there. I was like, they just haven't found it. They just haven't found it. Look harder. Look harder. You're gonna find it. They're moving it around in trucks. They're moving around in trucks. It's got to be there somewhere. Like,
I thought I bought the whole. Wait a minute. No, they put them in the trucks. They're going to Syria. Bashar al-Assad took those weapons. There's no way they're not there. I was on the train.
We all were there. We all were there. And then at a certain point, we're like, they just never existed. Never existed. All the marbles say support the public polling project. Baris has been the realest in the game through the Tea Party and Trump era. No BS. Respondents first pollster. He is. Yeah, no, I've already heralded him enough. I don't want to make him blush. I had 6 kids, very low income, and I still packed up and moved out in California.
Yeah.
Well, so she's, and there are some people who are saying they disagree with you. Not this one, but this saying that you're wrong, that people are able to move. And And I think that you sort of need to step back from like what your personal position is,
Yeah.
or even those you know, to
Yes.
understanding that
They can't.
that there's some people. Yeah, and I'll tell you this much: people in Harlem, like you're talking about, inner city youth, they can't move. They
No,
can't pack
guys.
and move. They are
They
there.
can't buy lunch, guys. They
Yeah.
can't buy lunch. Their only lunch is at a school when they go to school. They can't. I mean, my wife dealt with this for years. It's tragic to see. We've watched kids get put in the state before because the parents they can't even pay their rent, and then they're just end up on the street. They can't do it, guys. I mean, you really have to see. Yes, it is. Yes.
Oh, did you say you spoke with Trump?
I didn't personally speak with him, but yes, he has tried to reach out, and I did. Yeah, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to give the.
Okay, fine. I'm not going to put it on the spot, but okay.
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
Gen
it
X living in SoCal. I understand the problems of millennials. Been here 30 years and still can't afford a home. Costs always go up faster than wages.
Yeah.
I think that was the model for the nation.
Yeah.
And this, I saved this one because I wanted to get into this conversation with you. He's saying keep the filibuster. The House is in the block every 2 years. The House can push back against the Senate. So my question for you is, what are your thoughts on the filibuster? And I don't see the filibuster going away unless there's another shutdown type of situation. I think the shutdown was the best invitation for the GOP to get rid of the filibuster.
Yes.
But what do you think about the filibuster, about doing away with it so that Trump can do his agenda?
Well, Mike Johnson's an idiot. He didn't listen to me, and neither is anyone in the Senate. I told him, what was it, Saturday night, that if you do this, one, Democrats have no incentive. I'm actually surprised that Democrats caved, but I will say this. They still did, and I know why they did. There was no incentive for them to negotiate at all. They first came to the table and said, sure, we'll open the government back if you give all the jobs back that you took from Doge. And by the way, I just want everyone who's listening to know that Republicans were willing to do that until Donald Trump said, I will kill you. Okay. So, I've been very hard on Trump, but he and JD Vance, or Vice President Vance, stood their ground, and they are the reasons that didn't happen. And I want you all to know that, because Republicans are cowards who are going to roll over, and they were really going to do that because after last Tuesday, they're all terrified. So for all the people who call everyone panicins out there for pointing out what the president is doing wrong, the only panicins you will find are in Washington, D.C., sitting in Congress because they are scared. You know what, Liz? Their pants right now, worrying about next year.
Well, I'm going to push back on the whole panicins thing. I'm going to push back on you because I have seen the panicins.
There are some that are overwhelming panicins, Joe, but then there are some that are just simply trying to course correct the president because he's headed for disaster.
Right. But like with the whole Iran thing, there were people who were basically saying we're on the verge of World War III, and basically saying he had no idea what he was doing. I think that in our lifetimes, and definitely in our lifetimes, I think you have to go back at least a century, and you can even make a case that in American history, there's never been a greater president with respect to foreign policy. And this guy understands.
Trump?
Yeah, then Trump.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing. I have no qualms.
He knows how to handle people. I wish that they would. I don't. From a legal perspective, I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to let him control tariffs.
No, he argued it wrong, bro. It's out. You're a lawyer. You know that. I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer. Yeah, it's not trade strategy or trade negotiation anymore. You step on it.
And I think that he's really, and it's a shame because I think that it's a very powerful potential tool in his belt to deal with other nations in a way that he uniquely can. And that if any president should have the authority to do it, it's him, because it's not a matter of the reason that the founders gave it to Congress to the extent they did is because they look at that as being the power of the purse. This is not the power of the purse. This is, when it comes to tariffs with Trump specifically, it's about It's manipulating other country. It's about using our spending power as basically, BDE to slap other countries around and say, you're going to do what we want. And it helps promote the American exceptionalism that you and I grew up believing in. That
Do
hey,
you agree, though, as a lawyer, that he overstepped with how he said and stated it was being used? Like, honestly, like it went from being that negotiation strategy to be like sanctions and all of that. Like, do you agree that he so what do you see about the argument that is going to kill it?
Well, what I think is that I think that the articles of the Constitution make it pretty clear that duties are. I think the language of the Constitution really leave it. I lean more towards. I can see different ways to read it, and I think that the articles of the Constitution really help fortify the notion that this is a constitutional power. It's a congressional power, and
Tax, right?
What?
So,
What?
like, basically, that it's a tax that he's levying a tax that.
And I disagree. This is one area I look at the Constitution. I look at the founders, and like, you got it wrong. Like you got it wrong. Should be something looked at as international policy, and that should be the exclusive purview of the president. And perhaps in 1789, when they were drafting the Constitution, it really was the significant element to it was more of as a factor of being a revenue raising thing rather than being how do we deal with foreign nations. But so perhaps I'll cut them some slack that they were dealing with the situation at the time, and they said, "Hey, if you don't like it,
a war debt." They had a war debt.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's how you would be looking at tariffs then. But now, now it's really more a matter of how we deal with other countries. And I do think that it should be something that's presidential power. I just don't think that the Constitution is really worded in a way to strongly support that, which means now you're down to relying on the statutes that ceded some sort of power to Trump. And he's got to find some way to say, I have this authority based on the emergency powers. And I'm reluctant to believe that the neocons on the bench are going to agree with him on that.
Unfortunately, when we poll Pennsylvania and the upper Midwest, Great Lakes states, which is where that's his turf. That's how he won the presidency. Other Republicans cannot win these states. They, like Pennsylvania, for instance, we asked them, do you support the president's use of tariffs in a trade negotiation in order to get better trade deals on behalf of the United States and the American worker? Plus 23 in Pennsylvania, plus 28 in Michigan. I think it was like plus 19 in Wisconsin. Even in Minnesota, it was like plus 20. I mean, it's such a shame because if they yank this power, Joe, they're going to yank one of the Republicans' best arguments for winning those states. Tragic. It's tragic. I loved when he raised tariffs in Michigan. It was like that the Democrats had no answer to it. And there were United Auto Workers and in other obviously states there were other working class, especially even unions, that were just like screaming at the top of their lungs like this is our tool against NAFTA and what they did to us. And if the Supreme Court does this, they're gonna hurt the electoral map for Republicans because there's no argument anymore. How can any Republican make that argument?
Well, the way we could is if we pass a lot of legislation that conforms to his Agenda 47. My question for you is so where are you at on the filibuster? Because I don't know if I got a definitive answer from you on that.
I will say this. So I have to be careful here, but I will say this. The president understands a lot of the criticisms that have been leveled against him. And his response to that is, this is not my fault. That's
shocking.
Freaking Republicans who will not nuke the filibuster. And I agree with him because I understand the protecting of the institution. But I will tell you this, folks, we have crossed every Rubicon in the Trump era, and Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema saved it before. They will nuke the filibuster. The House is going to the Democrats. I hate to break everybody's bubble. Okay. The House is going. And if the House goes, there won't be any protection against a future Democratic Congress. You have to wait, guys. you may have to wait until another census before the House and redistricting gets fair. They are grossly advantageous to Democrats right now, the maps. Republicans started a fight. They were not willing to fight to win. So forget about Texas. And look in Utah, by the way. They're not going to impeach that judge. There's another seat now for Democrats. Republicans are minus a seat in Utah because a liberal judge decided to usurp the power of the legislature, which you don't have to be a lawyer to know. It's very clear. There is no power for a state judge to decide they're going to rewrite a congressional map. But we saw this everywhere. We saw this in North Carolina. We saw this in state after state. Republicans kowtow, they cave. And look, there's only one way Republicans are going to be able to save themselves from getting drummed in the House. And that is to pass a bold and aggressive agenda that looks like America first. And right now, they have about 3 cycles in the Senate that are favorable to them. The longer they wait to abolish the filibuster, the more likely it is that they will get wiped out so bad that they will actually lose the Senate in a cycle they're not supposed to. Like right now, for instance, everyone thinks that, it's too hard for Democrats to take the Senate this time. Nonsense. You're not paying attention to what happened last Tuesday. Republicans who have been in office for 2.5 decades, got swept out by this wave. People are very pissed off. They were promised a big reform, a big agenda. They didn't get it. And now they're mad. So Ted Cruz can go out and scream in a microphone all he wants about, I call on them to impeach Judge Boasberg. Do it then. You have to do this. If you don't, you're cooked. So I do think the filibuster is gone no matter what. We're living in an era, guys, where they're going to put, if President Trump is impeached, and I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. A little reporter from a mainstream media outlet who called me yesterday accidentally let it slip in our conversation, which most people like me don't talk to them, but I do because I try to do this to them the way they try to fish information out of me. I try to fish it out of them. And she lost that exchange. She slipped, and she told me about a effort from Democratic staffers where they're putting together a bunch of bribery charges against not just Trump, but members of his administration, the plane, all the Epstein files, where they're going. It doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be credible. We saw this during the first administration. The New York Times cut out 500 words out of the transcript to make it look like the lie, the fabrication that Adam Schiff put forward during the impeachment hearing was actually true with this phone call with Zelensky. They're going to do this all over again. What I'm telling you is I would care about institutional, integrity and the norms and all that. We're gone. It's beyond that. This is a blood sport. They're going to put people in jail, people in the administration, the president, people who supported him. We're all going to jail, guys. I mean, I really don't know what to tell you all. That's how it's going right now. And I did call one Democratic lawmaker that I actually do trust. And I asked him, is this true? I told him the whole story. I was talking to so-and-so from this news outlet, and she said this. And she tried to backtrack, and he said, Rich, this has been going on for 2 months. So this has been happening for months, and they have tons of stuff that they're going to throw at the president when they take the House, and they will grind his government to a halt. They will, and once his guys, people will say, well, what if the Republicans still keep it? It'll amount to nothing. That's not true. Once if Lindsey Graham wins his primary and Trump's approval falls to 40%, 38%, he has nothing left to give them. He's at the end of the electoral line.
He's a lame duck.
He's a lame duck. They will turn on him and they will convict him, and he will be gone. You guys don't know DC unless you're there. These are the dirtiest, most disloyal people on planet Earth, and that's where we're headed. So you might as well nuke it, and you might as well deliver for the American public. Number one, because they deserve it, because they supported you. Number two, because it's gone anyway. And number three, because they're coming for you. They're coming. And I hate to say it, Joe, this can be ugly if they can do this. I wish that we could all pretend like
and you're next in the news. You testify for Trump. So
yeah.
You know, your neck is squarely in that news.
Oh my God, Robespierre is coming for me now.
And you were phenomenal in that. By the way, I don't know if I even had you on there since you did that, which was like years ago that you testified there. But
Thank you. I appreciate that. And even though the lawyers screwed it up and missed 3 pages of my analysis, they forgot to submit. Unbelievable. And so the lawyers are like cross-examining me. And I'm trying to explain it, and they didn't have the information.
This was in Colorado. Where was that?
Arizona.
In Arizona. Right. Yeah. He testified in the Arizona. This was back in 2021.
222, I think. 22. Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I definitely haven't had you on since then. I remember covering it, and I was just like, hey, that's my friend. He's standing there. He's on the stand.
Don't send a lawyer after a math guy. They were lost in the sand. I know you were girl, but they got lost.
You were blistering there. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was fun.
If you ever have a chance to talk to some of the senators who stand against the filibuster, this is the point I would make to you. I would urge you to make to them from a philosophical perspective. Okay, a philosophical perspective. The reason for the filibuster is because the notion is you don't want the majority to be chewing up the minority.
Yeah.
You want to force the majority to actually negotiate, to give something back, not to just run roughshod over them, but to give something back. That's what the objective of the filibuster is. But we are living in an age now, as we were just discussing a half hour ago, where it's not a matter of what you're saying or what policies you're advocating. It's just a matter of who is saying it as to whether or not I'm going to agree or disagree with you, which is why it's not a matter of you're advancing policies that, I want to tweak those policies. I just hate it because it's coming from your mouth. And that's their objection to it. Their objection is not that what you're advocating, there's something wrong with it. It's just you're saying it, so I disagree. And that is not something you can negotiate. The point to a filibuster is to urge negotiation. You cannot negotiate with someone who considers you to be Hitler, because they would think less of themselves for negotiating with Hitler. Right? So when they're repeating that over and over again, and that's another thing we were talking about, the repetition, where they actually start thinking of us as being evil. I showed a commercial yesterday when I was talking about Kamala and some of the ads she runs. I don't know why, I don't remember how it came up. But one of the commercials that you might recall, which had all those creepy Republicans who are claiming it's your body. I get to decide what happens to your body.
In the bed? Do you remember that? In bed with them?
I could probably no. It was, and the idea was that they're showing this, and it was created, and it was laughable that I was like, these are a bunch of Democrats that got to play these roles because it's a Kamala commercial.
Yeah, those are white Democrats.
Those are white Democrats, and they got a creepy pastor-looking guy, who says, I think we should be reviewing what porn you're watching. It's like all sorts of crazy type of perspectives with guys who are sweaty, and looking gross and disgusting. And the point that I made was that when they made this commercial, they're thinking to themselves, this is how Democrats think MAGA is. They don't think that's a parody.
Oh, yeah.
They actually believe that's what MAGA is.
Yes.
You would never negotiate with someone like that because you're like, they're genuinely purely evil. Why would I negotiate? Whatever they say is wrong, and I'm against it. So when we're living in an era where that's where we're at, that whatever I say to you, no matter how reasonable it is, you're just going to look at me as if I'm some sweaty, disgusting predator. So and then you're just going to be rejecting it because of who's saying it. How am I supposed to negotiate with you? There's no negotiation, and there's no point to the filibuster anymore. There's no point to it because no matter what I'm throwing back at you, you're still not okay with it. Because
Grace, clip that. Grace. No, I'm serious. There's what's her name? Grace Chong. She's always clipping my videos from War Room. Clip that, because I think you make a good point. Does it work anymore if this is the way we look at each other and how we interact and how the system works? And it's funny because I'm creating this report on I'm hesitant to just put out everything all at once, but we've been working on this report to deliver how we, I mean, it was started and it is on political violence, but it is illuminated so much in the room here where we're now understanding how, I mean, the left is one thing, the right has their own flaws too, Joe, but how we look at each other and how the other side sees the other. And the number one thing, the only thing they agree on is that the other side is a threat to them. The degree of how much of a threat varies depending on whether you're talking to the left or the right. But how do you talk to somebody, and how does this system, a sophisticated system the founders put together, how does it work if the intent to be deliberative, right, and the intent to squash the tyranny of the majority, which is what you're talking about before, right? The tyranny of the majority. Just because you have the majority doesn't mean at that moment that what you want to do is right. So they protected us against the passions of the House by giving us the more deliberative Senate. It's not like that anymore. And the truth is, it's even worse. The senators themselves, they don't consider their role like that. The filibuster to them is a way of making rent seeking more valuable. And what, for people who don't know what I mean, rent seeking behavior is special interest, the pursuit of special interest to basically get a senator to do what they want and to support their favored legislation. So Lindsey Graham isn't running for re-election on his own dime. He goes to the military industrial complex. The filibuster protects the special interests, the rent seekers, because it's harder for a subsequent Congress to undo previous legislation that was passed by another Senate, by another Congress, right? So if we constantly yeeted out senators and House members every 2 years, every 6 years, and replace them with new people, it would make the staying power of legislation more, well, less durable. And it would make that legislation more expensive, right? So, because ultimately those rent seekers would have to come back, guys, and they would have to go and pass it again if, God forbid, a subsequent Congress would reverse or repeal what they did. That's why repealing Obamacare was so difficult. The system is designed to make sure that once a bill is passed, the rent seekers get what they want, and it cannot be reversed. So the filibuster is a way for these senators to make themselves more valuable to the rent seekers. And then in turn, if they're the rent seekers,
I'm delivering to you a longer promise because
yes,
you know it's never going to be undone.
Yeah, because it's never going to be undone. They're
Right.
never going to be able to
because you're not renting, you're buying.
You're buying at this point, Joe. Right. You're buying. So Senate has been given, unfortunately, thanks to a lot of bad Supreme Court Supreme Court rulings. They were eventually given, ultimately, greater regulatory authorities, power to regulate the economy, the power to give different companies and rent seekers, whatever it is, a competitive advantage. And after a while, if you could just make sure that the legislation stays as durable, you're no longer renting that competitive advantage. You've bought it. It's done. So like abolishing the filibuster is in a way that the right has not addressed. We talk about term limits and everything. It's actually a way to combat the negative impacts of the 17th Amendment, which is once upon a time, the state legislatures would send your senator. Yeah. And now one man, one vote, which was a load of crap, only resulted in average tenure for U.S. senators expanding. When the 17th Amendment was voted on, guys, it was, I believe, less than a full term was the average tenure for U.S. Senate. Now it's exploded. It's a career. It's a career. That's what the 17th Amendment did. So we got rid of basically the idea of what we instituted was political careerism. So now these guys are here, and being a U.S. senator is their career, and they stay there forever to make sure that their favorite legislation is not overdone. And that's a major problem for us, guys. Major problem.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions I want to get from you that I don't want to forget about. So let me jump on them. One of the things when we talked about Epstein, I'm going to ask you this. I have a philosophy that anything that happens in an odd number year doesn't matter. for elections. I mean, I'm putting aside the odd number year election. What I'm saying is when you look at federal elections, whatever current events happen in an odd number year, unless they're so significant that they linger into an even number year, the short-term memory of the American populace is going to keep it from having much of an impact, that people are not going to remember it at all. All these things that seem like such a massive thing, like a massive win on this or that, unless it doesn't resonate with people.
That's mostly true.
Unless it's something that's cataclysmic, like the Great Depression, so that happened in 1929. So that lingered for years, and the
impact was just going to bust out the Kevin Phillips. But yeah, you're right.
My question is, with that in mind, do you think that the Epstein debacle is going to hurt us in the federal election in 2026, seeing as how it happened so far in the past, if it's left unremedied?
I think Donald Trump could have said what I said before, how he could have pivoted and said, look, here's my excuse, what I laid out before. And now we're going to pivot to making your lives better. And if the Republican Party would have put on a show, even Joe, if they didn't mean it, if they just acted, didn't be a bunch of wannabe oligarchies for 6 months and did what Trump ran on, they could have dominated this country for 30 years, but they didn't do it. These voters who voted for Trump in 24, they weren't even dating the Republican Party. They were flirting with them, and they were waiting for the Republicans to convince them that they were going to be like Donald Trump. Donald Trump made being a Republican cool again. If he would have bettered their lives with the help of his Congress, with their R after their last names, with their majority, they would have earned them. And they didn't do that. Epstein was just the beginning of a narrative, but it isn't the end all be all. He could have just given a really bad excuse, which I told him to give at the time. He didn't take my advice. Instead, he went to Truth Social and said, I don't want your support anymore. And it was the worst thing you could possibly have done. But Republicans didn't prioritize the needs of the American public. Epstein will not be a thing in 2026. What will be a thing is the cost of living. And I would say, Jack Posobiec and I were talking about this. GDP means nothing, right? That is like a useless measurement to the American people now. This is about perception and the conditions that they're living in, which is now why healthcare is number 3 in our rank distribution, because they're just concerned about everything, Joe. Their ability to buy groceries, cost of living, and inflation is number 1. Even though inflation has cooled under Trump, it doesn't matter because they're stuck making at best lateral moves in the employment in the labor market, right? Job markets are not good. Job openings are the lowest they've been since October in the Great Recession, and there's no openings there. And so they're thinking about, well, if I can't get another job, what about my health care? It's just spiraling, a cost of living spiral. And that is what will decide how voters cast their ballot.
And speaking of which, this ties into, what we saw happen here was they shut down the government. It seems fairly purposefully for the purpose to win
Democrats
the election. They wanted to win the election.
They
were blaming it on Trump. So now, if we don't abolish the filibuster, why would they not do it again next year?
Oh, they will. Oh, they
100% they will.
Will do it again.
Right.
They were willing to starve people, Joe.
Yeah.
They were willing to starve Americans.
That shouldn't shock you. They were willing to kill people during COVID. They were celebrating the death of people during COVID. The daily death stuff. So their willingness to starve these are all elitists. Their willingness to starve poor people. That shouldn't be surprising to anyone. These people are
on the deficit, brother.
These people are sick. They were having a parade every day. How many people died today? It was a daily thing. They were draping themselves in gore because they were so excited about what that would do to Trump in the election. So yeah, you should not be surprised at all. These elitists are so perfectly fine with pretending that they're so noble and concerned about starving people while they're the ones who are starving them. And that's what will happen in 2026 if we do not get rid of the filibuster. So you have the philosophical basis that it doesn't serve any purpose anymore. And then there's just the political reality. That this is going to happen. This is going to happen, and we're going to get a bloodbath in 2026 because that government is going to be shut down. You can know it with certainty. On October 1st, 2026, the government will be shut down if there's no filibuster. They will be shut down.
Ron Klain, who was running Biden's campaign at one point, he was a source for an article that Fox News wrote, and they didn't name him, but I knew it was Ron. They showed polls at this time. Trump was not trailing him the way that he eventually went on to trail him really badly, right? Late in the summer and in the fall. It was in the spring, and everyone was getting sick. But Trump was still kind of riding high with approval, and everyone kind of knew at this point they were going to push Biden, and Obama was burning up the phones to make sure Bernie wasn't nominated. And Fox News asked Ron Klain about our poll, I believe it was the Rasmussen poll, a couple others, and they said, Ron, despite what you're saying right now, Trump is doing all right. He's holding his own. And Ron said, let's see what the polls look like after 200,000 body bags. This was before people started dying in mass, Joe, right? Yeah. This is how they think. Yeah. They will kill you to win elections. I'm sorry that sounds like I'm being, hyperbolic or whatever the word is. They don't care about this stuff, the humanity of it. They just don't. And unfortunately, I remember talking to John Solomon a week before the election, and they were doing what they could to pass these votes and get it through. And Republicans were seriously optimistic that they were going to be able to get the government open before the election. And I just chuckled on Solomon's show. Where are you? Who are you guys? Who do you think you're dealing with? They're going to starve people to make sure urban New Jersey, right? In Bergen County, they're going to starve people to make sure everyone on food stamps in East Orange goes and votes, Joe, right? They're going to make sure that Mamdani, no matter what they say about him, they were worried about him winning. They were going to starve people to make sure that Mamdani was the next mayor of New York City. By the way, I got to tell you this.
Well, so I wanted to ask you about this election.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, there's all sorts of questions about how there's 500,000 new votes. I live in Jersey, so this is personal for me. Do you think that there was fraud in New Jersey?
There's always fraud in New Jersey.
Do you think that do you think that there was fraud that explains the 500,000 vote difference?
Don't think that, let me put it this way. I don't think that there is fraud that would account for Republicans losing the election. So that is too big of a margin in order to chalk it up to, fraud. The fact of the matter is, I know how Democrats cheat, and they have guys like me who look at the ballots as they're coming in. Early vote is always counted first, and they'll hold back how many absentee ballots they have to see. They'll have guys like me basically crunching the numbers and saying, what do we need in this area to make sure that we can help make up that difference? This was not that. She won, and she won overwhelming. And the reason she did is and little secret, which came out, thank you, Jack Posobiec, we were polling New Jersey, and we just didn't put it out publicly. And I got to give a big shout out to Mark Mitchell, who was the only one who had the courage to stand tall and put it out. He put out, I believe, a Cheryl +6 or something, while other people were putting out close races. The race was not close to us at all. It was maybe a month before the election, 3 months before the election. Then they called in Obama, and they brought Obama in, and Obama ran around and told everybody, if you don't vote, Republicans are going to kill you. Your snap cards aren't going to come in. They know what they're doing to galvanize their vote. Joe, the Republicans, while Donald Trump is saying, you need me? I'll go to Wildwood. You want me to bring another 100,000 to Wildwood? They told him no. The Citarelli team told him no. His own advisors told him no. I was told by I'm not going to blow these people up. They were telling me to stop saying publicly that Donald Trump needs to go there, because if Donald Trump goes there, all it will do is increase Democratic turnout. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of the realignment that has occurred in the last 10 years. Republicans now have the lower propensity vote. Democrats in off cycles and in midterms are always going to have the easier time and the higher base turnout. Republicans need the man himself to drag these people out. How do you think he got it within 5 points without even campaigning there? Massive support from Democrats, massive margin from independents. And when yet Mark Mitchell and I were polling the state, all of these polls that showed big crossover vote that supported Citarelli, we just didn't see it. I saw 18% of Republicans voting for Mickey Sherrill and only 8% of Democrats voting for Jack Citarelli. And what accounted for that? Who was going to turn out? That was a sample of who was actually telling us they were going to vote and who we believe was going to vote. By the way, I mean, we got really close. Mark had, Cheryl by 6. I think his last one, which he didn't, I shouldn't say this, but it was a little bit more. The one he didn't release, I'll let him speak for himself. And ours was about 9.5. Same thing in Virginia. We had Spanberger 10.8. And all of these internal polls, Joe, all of these consultants racking in the millions were showing close races. It was very obvious to us they had a couple of problems. Trump voters, who were some of them longtime Republicans who Trump brought back into the fold with his promises, and then some of the newer Trump voters who are, yes, young, but also, guys, a new Trump voter could be 50 years old. That's the magic of Donald Trump. He would bring people in who haven't voted since Bill Clinton. Maybe they're even older than that, right? They just decided, I'm not doing it. I'm too pissed. I'm not. They were mad. They were super mad at Republicans. They thought Republicans abandoned them. And they didn't think. They did. I mean, I could rattle off all of these policy things that they promised, Joe. They never delivered. So, even
on the while he closed the border, like as far as removing the illegal aliens, I would have thought
mass deportations.
Yeah, I thought by now we would have 1 million people out. You know what I'm saying? Not that we're talking about tens of thousands and just the criminals and focusing on just the criminals. I'm like, no, they're all criminals. I want them all gone.
All criminals, Joe.
Just get rid of this
Gallup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get rid of all 20 million. Instead, he starts making excuses, saying some people who have been here a long time, they've been here a long time. Maybe we should. It's like, I was just like, this is the same thing with H-1B. It's like, I'm like, no, I brought you in there because you're the person who's supposed to be getting rid of these folks. I mean, that's exactly what we need to enter an isolationist phase here. We need to worry about. That's what Make America Great is that we're prioritizing American interests. And I'm sorry, I want to be slowing down our legal immigration. Our legal immigration.
So do all Americans, Joe. So does
our
the
legal
majority
immigration
of Americans.
We bring in 1 million legal immigrants every single year. And that's fine. And that's wonderful. And the ones who get in here, I say, God bless you. Welcome to America, assuming that your fidelity is genuinely toward America, not one of these Ilhan Omar types who comes in here for the purposes of trying to subvert American interests.
Yeah.
So, but if you're here and you're an immigrant and you just got naturalized yesterday, and I trust you, I give you the benefit of the doubt that you're here to better your life and your family, and I say welcome to America. God bless you, and you should have all the same civil rights that those of us who've been living here for and our families can go back 300 years here, that you should get every one of those same civil rights. But the idea that we're just going to keep flooding people in, and we know how corrupt Biden was, literally flying people across the border, paying people to come in here. I mean, just dumping them in here. And that we're going to say only if you went out there and sexually abused little kids and murdered people, those are the only ones who are getting rid of them. The rest of the people who are not psychotic, those ones can all stay here, is asinine. And it does feel like a breach of his promise. It feels a breach of like what we were all voting for a year ago. And frankly, it needs to be stepped up. It needs to be, hey, look, nothing personal. You're just not a citizen and you don't have a right to be here. So goodbye. I'm not denying your humanity. I'm just denying your citizenship. So goodbye.
Lydia Sayed, who is did work at Gallup, and she still may, but I heard she was let go. She wrote a great piece during all of this, during the camp, that basically said, in truth, if the media polls, they have a very funny way of like skewing the question to make it seem like if you don't support allowing some of these poor dreamers to stay here, you're a bad person. But what Gallup had been doing for years was simply asking people, do you want increased migration? Do you want legal? Do you want increased levels? Do you want the levels to remain the same? Or do you want levels to decrease to allow for assimilation? Right. And for guys, as long as Gallup has been asking this, people have said we need to allow our country to assimilate. We need to allow these new people who have already come here, God knows how many, to assimilate. And the thing is, what bothers me the most about what you were just saying is that the number that we have all been told about how many people are here has always been a lie. There's been 7 million people, 9 million people. It's been that way for 3 decades. When we just had a census, and the president himself knows that the number is way more than that.
They say total like 100 million here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I will be conservative and say if it's 35 million, don't be surprised. It could be way more. And the census kind of has an idea, of course, because they didn't exclude illegal aliens. So, I mean, at the end of the day, knowing that, how could you not go to the microphone and simply say, listen, the problem was actually worse than we thought. Now immigration is number 5 in our ranked distribution of our most important voting issues. And that is normal. When it, like I said before, when an issue is perceived to be fixed, it falls as a priority. So people don't vote on it anymore. If you want people to vote on immigration, which is a good issue for Republicans, you would want to rehatch this, right? And you would want to say, look, actually, guys, now that we've been into it, I hate to say it, but the data suggests this is actually way worse than we thought. And it can't just be the criminals only. We really are going to have to take the approach that everyone who came here is a criminal. We can't allow 1/3 of the entire American population to be illegal residents. We cannot allow that. And pull some Eisenhower level deportation program. It's this idea that it can't be done. Joe, they did it during Eisenhower. They moved millions and millions of people. So now we're
in what the operation was called?
I always forget this. I do know. I just keep forgetting.
You can't say it. You can't say it on YouTube.
Oh, it starts with the W?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
It starts with a W, and it's a slur for Spanish people. It was Operation W. And it's a 7-letter word, which is a slur for Spanish people.
7-letter word that ends with a K.
Yes.
Yes, I do remember. But seriously, I mean, if they could do that during the Eisenhower administration, imagine what we could do now.
Such a different age.
And then look at what he said with the HB1 visas. We're polling every night, and it's very rare that you see people react to something almost nightly and in real time. Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham was so bad that people were actually citing it that night during polling. And people were, and the truth is people aren't dumb. And a lot of politicians forget that. And he was making the argument that is the H-1B version of the illegal argument, Joe. Well, if we don't let in all of these migrant workers, then Americans don't want these jobs. They won't pick cotton, right? They won't fold laundry. They won't vacuum your carpet. They won't mow your lawn, right? And he was doing this. He was doing the Chamber of Commerce version.
That's the neocon. That's the neocon perspective. That should not be our perspective.
That's who's in his ear, brother. That's who's in his ear. And then every time we push back, right? Which people say, panicking, when we push back and he goes, what the hell are you yelling at me? Right. And then it gets explained to him. He always turns to his advisors and go, wait a minute. You made me explain this wrong. Like, this is what is going on. And, and that's why I think people like, well, I'm not going to cite them out, but there are some people who have been out there repeatedly criticizing Trump and saying no, because he does have a little too, look at his dinner last night, for crying out loud. He's too surrounded by the donors, by the banks, and the rest. The best thing, Mr. President, you could do, which is what I said today, go on a tour. Go on a freaking Midwest job creation tour. Go appoint a cost of living czar. And if it's not you yourself, someone you deeply trust who has empathy, and have them go run around the country and go talk to people. The one thing about Steve Bannon is that he understood during the first administration that Trump and any president can get isolated. It's a very isolating place, guys. There are people, you love the office, the way Trump has this office pimped out is unbelievable. I gotta tell you, it's the gold trim. It's super busy. He loves the circus of it. He loves entertaining you. He's very flattering, but it's like, you gotta be like, all right, it's all beautiful. Wake up, get the hell out of here and go to, Juneau, Wisconsin, go to Saginaw, Michigan, go to, get the hell out of here and go spend Christmas like you did, by the way, in 2018 in Wisconsin with Melania, and have those beautiful Midwestern Christmas trees, and talking about manufacturing jobs. Go spend time with the UAW workers in Wayne County that gave you tens of thousands of more votes than any Republican in modern history in an urban area, and go talk to them. Get out of that hole. I'll try to be nice on your show. It's a cesspool job that sucks you in. Get out of that and go speak to the American people. He's so good with them, and he's so good with them, and he'll make them fall in love with. He will make the American public fall in love with him all over again. But he's got to get out and course correct now. He's got to. We're out of time.
Yeah.
Out of time.
Yeah. Old school. I appreciate. I could talk to you for like another 2 hours here, because you're so easy to talk to, and I love these conversations. Before I get to the super chats, and I want to get you on out of here, because I am mindful of your time. I do have one question for you. Fetterman has done almost a complete 180 from being one of the most concerning senators to seemingly the most sane senator. Yeah. Almost on either side. Right. I mean, it's certainly on the left, and a lot saner than so many of the neocons we have. So my question for you, and I hope he's okay. They say he had some sort of health issue today. Yes. If you missed it, he fell and he was taken to a hospital, but that they don't think it's anything serious. My question for you is this: has this change in Fetterman? I don't know if you're aware, if you've looked into this at all. How has this affected his polling numbers? Has it made it less likely or more likely he'll be reelected? I know he's got a while before he comes back up, but is he more or less popular now? Because I would imagine a lot of Democrats have definitely turned on him. He was talking yesterday about just how vile and evil they are and the way they talk to him. And in fact, I even have a little clip here. Think that where he basically where he's talking to Katie Couric. I don't want to spend 3 minutes watching through it, but he's basically going on. I know it. Just how terribly evil and wishing death upon him the left is now. And my question is, has he gained back some of that love from the Republicans, or is he cooked when he comes up for re-election?
He's got a big swell of support in especially northeastern, because I have polled this, in northeastern Pennsylvania, which is like Trump country, but not Republican country. Luzerne, Lackawanna, Monroe, Pike, those areas where Trump has swung those counties hard to the right. They've been blue forever. He Monroe was a miracle in 2024, although we did see it coming for a while, but it was like the miracle finally happened, right? And there was only 2 counties before 24, guys, that are ever pivot counties in Pennsylvania. And so we do see swells of support there among Republicans, and it's Trump's Republicans, 24, 25%. The problem is that'll help him in a general election. And whatever he loses among Democrats, enough Democrats will vote for him, and he'll get enough support among Republicans who are Trumplicans that he will win a general election. The problem is the primary. The Democrats are, they demand absolute fealty. Right. And if you don't give it to them, you will end up like Kirsten Sinema. And that is the position he's in a primary right now. So to a generic Democrat, now maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna, you asked me, to a generic Democrat, John Fetterman will lose. And that is unbelievable. Because why? Let's face it. Well, maybe I shouldn't bring this as sensitive, but he's pro-Israel, which is a problem for the left, period, right? You got your issues on the right now with Israel. It's, being debated. But on the left, it's not an issue. They don't like Israel. And he is pro-Israel. And then you have this other segment of the left who maybe can even swallow that. Anyone who works with Trump at all is persona non grata, right? So those videos with Dave McCormick, I'm going to open the government because you're more important than partisanship. That is honorable, but to Democrats, you're signing your death warrant. You're signing your electoral death warrant. And it's a shame. I will say this too, and I'll end it with this. John Fetterman has said he agrees with Trump on 80%. And if the McConnell wing and the Ted Cruz kind of like more interventionist wing of the Republican Party was not there, he would leave the Democratic Party. It's not breaking news. There are other people who know this, but he can't do it because he hates the McConnell wing. I don't know if hate's a strong word, but you know what I mean? He just cannot stand throwing in his lot with those people because he knows what a lot of Republican voters actually haven't come to grips with yet. Trump is not like them. Trumpism is not like them. They are lying. They don't agree with you. Stop voting for Lindsey Graham.
They're all just snakes.
They're liars.
They kiss up to whoever's in power. When Trump is in power, they kiss up to him. When they saw him on the way out in 2020, they were the first to stab him in the back. And yeah. Let me get some of these chats so we can wrap up here. I have a question for Rich. Am I wasting my time trying to get back into statistics, specifically biostatistics, given H-1B visas? I have over a decade of teaching and research experience.
Wow. I want to tell you, no, and hopefully the fates like put you in the area that you want to be in, and maybe the powers that be get their senses. But I think the smarter bet here is to roll back on what you have and what you know and what you can rely on. Look, for me personally, Joe, I mean, I needed somebody who I fell under, somebody who kind of gave me, took me under his wing. It was like a tutelage kind of thing. And, it's different. You're specifically biostatistics. I mean, I'm not that familiar with biostatistics, but I do know enough about that to be concerned that you're going to run into the same problem that I ran into in aeronautical engineering, which is that you're not going to be a priority, right? Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen, we were talking about this the other day. He's done a lot of these tech jobs as well. We've been in different sectors, by the way. Crazy small world where in Wall Street before the financial crisis ran into each other in the same. We knew that we recognized each other, but in all of that time in between, old school, you're kind of floating around trying to figure out where you're going to go. I don't ever want to tell anybody to give up on their dreams, but don't just make sure you have a decade in teaching and research. If that's where you can be stable, stay there. Until something's a sure thing. But if you got to go back to school for it, I don't know. I would be hard pressed to tell people to spend money on it, Joe. I really would. Look at where I would be if I did it. I would not have gotten hired.
Yeah, it's scary.
It is.
They have no scales then, and probably not Trump. I'm not sure what he's referring to here. This was an hour ago. This was 15 minutes ago. I apologize that I sort of didn't want to interrupt things when we have a flow. This guy reminds me. He's okay. I'm telling you now, Dick. If you look at his polling results, he's better at this than anyone.
All right, Dick.
He understands. He understands.
Get out of here, brother.
Zero Lopez says, why don't they actually make them talk for a filibuster? These old bags can't keep it up. 960 hours of Democrats, blah, 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 can never happen. I don't know. They changed that where you don't actually have to do it. And
they did. Yeah.
And I think it's the laziness. It's the group laziness that they're like, I don't want to have to do it, so I'm not going to make you do it. But that would be a way to, because they wouldn't. It's laziness. Kimmy says they don't want to nuke the filibuster because the GOP Congress doesn't want to implement the MAGA Maha agenda, and that would remove their excuse.
I think if we could resurrect Rush Limbaugh, Kimmy, he'd agree with you.
Well, that's it. You're not all right. That's harsh. That's harsh, Dick. The Dems are hell bent on the communist agenda.
I'm losing brain cells reading your comments, brother.
The left will see what tyranny is.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I hope they don't. I hope you're wrong. I hope it never happens. But the same people hating on Rich are going to scream impossible fraud after midterms. Why shoot the messenger? Rich is a true patriot and pollster. Yeah. And in an age when, seriously, every other pollster is so far off. Like, to have someone who's actually like even anywhere near the ballpark, and you do a lot better than that, that's why you and Mark Mitchell are pretty much the two I listen to.
I mean, Joe, too big to rig literally came from my mouth. And the idea, this is why I tried to explain to that, because I knew Trump. We did so much research, guys. And the problem is the voter that's hard pressed for the GOP to get out. We asked them all of these questions. Why don't you vote? What are the reasons you don't vote? Right. And then who could, and the most important one, who could motivate you to vote? And back then, when we started that research, it was the Republican primary was going on. So we had a lot of candidates to present to people. Donald Trump was the only one. They said, well, if I will vote, it'll be because, I could see myself voting for Trump because I want him to wreck it all. And nobody else has that. So they have this huge lift here now, and the bottom line is I just don't know if they can do it. And whoever said that before in the comment before, they weren't listening. They didn't listen, and they will cry fraud after the election. And look, there's always fraud. But the fact of the matter is the too big to rig was based on numbers. Somebody like Donald Trump could drive turnout up, and there's enough of you out there. If you're on the right, this will give you at least hard. There's enough of you. The numbers are sufficient where no matter how much they try to cheat, if you did get your job done, if you did your job and you did it well and you got out and voted, you can swamp them. They can't cheat and stop you. Donald Trump probably won the popular vote by 3-5 points, Joe. You realize that? Like, he probably did, but he beat them so badly. It wasn't possible to overtake him, and not without it being just blatant, so that was what I said to them from the very beginning. Stop beating up early voting. I need the president. Everyone who's in on this needs the president to cheerlead for early voting, because we need him. He was the only one that people believed. So if those people who were very skeptical of early voting did not hear Donald Trump say, go vote and vote early, they wouldn't have done it. And we needed him to do it. And he didn't. He bought into the idea that if I listen to this, it's too big to rig. I'll just keep saying that. They did. And it worked. It worked. So the Republicans failing to do what he can do is not that. It's not an excuse to regress and start crying about fraud. And then, an excuse to not listen to the polls that are screaming at you to pay attention to what voters' concerns are and pivot if you need to pivot. Nobody's perfect. Sycophancy has never helped any leader ever in the history of civilization, Joe. I've been asking my locals community, find me a history book, find me a leader where sycophancy has helped. It's never helped. It's destroyed movements, destroyed leaders, destroyed countries. Doesn't work.
Yeah, indeed. How do I get Rich's polls? I have to super chat.
Peoplespundit.locals.com. You're going to see a little on the widget. It's going to say, hey, check out our polls. It'll be a hand in the air. Click on it with a ballot in it. That's how you can do it. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Rich is spot on. We're all feeling exactly what he said all night. They've encapsulated Trump with neocons. He's so much better just following his instincts. He's got to get back at that now and fast. MC Roger Rock says, welcome to YouTube. Well, my new follower over there. I haven't really been checking on what's been going on in there. The Rumble like all night, and there's been a few chats there that I just need to pull up. And thank you, Dino Klein, for gifting 5 subscriptions.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, very cool indeed. And Red Delta says, Rich, please send Seb and Steve these bullet points and give us some specific instructions. Okay.
I'm doing my best. I think I know. Yeah. I mean, I'll look at him.
You mean Sebastian Gorka?
Yeah, he's talking about Gorka. Yeah. Doing my best. Spoke to him today, actually.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. And what else did I have for you?
Gorka's more of an interventionist, Joe. I mean, he really is, or at least he's more willing to use the primacy of U.S. power, which I am not. And I don't think Venezuela is the answer here, brother. I mean, like, come on. Drugs, Joe, give me a break. Come on.
No one cares.
No one cares. Yeah.
No one cares. Yeah, it's not a winning topic. I never even cover it when it happens because to me, I'm like, I know no one's going to care. It's just
he wants a win. Yeah. I mean, that's what he's because he didn't get the Ukraine deal. And, he didn't get the deal in the Middle East yet that he really wanted, although they're optimistic about it. But he feels like he needs like a win, like a strong win. And I said, yeah, you're going to get a strong pain in the ass in your own hemisphere. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah. And the last thing I sort of saved this to finish with this over here. Lauren Kremen saying, great discussion. How can we turn it around? So maybe just give us like whatever number of bullet points you think are necessary in order to turn this around.
Listen, I got to tell you, the president, he does seem to get it. The vice president, he definitely does get it. And they're going, I don't want to blow anything. I don't want to jump the shark here, but you will start to see a few different, you saw some today. There will be some changes and there will be some.
What did we see today? What do you mean?
There was a couple of executive orders. One in particular was about foster care. And, it was very pro-family. I think so. A very pro-family executive order. The one thing though that they have to do to really, I think because a lot of people are concerned about the midterms, is that Congress is going to have to follow Trump's lead on some of the things he's going to ask them to do. And it's going to be tough because historically, every time Congress is risk averse in a midterm election season. They will not vote on controversial stuff. Mike Johnson is going to have to grow a pair for once, and so is John Thune, and they're going to have to bring these things to a vote, as hard and as uncomfortable as they will be. And the problem is some of them that were suggested are right at the heart of their donor bases, especially in big pharma. So they have to do it. They have to do it.
Can you give examples of the type of things that they need to be brought to the floor that you think he'll be reticent to bring? Give examples.
They have to remove the exemption for
COVID
pharmaceutical. Yes, that particular vaccine. Yeah, they have to do it. They have to do it. People want. I mean, the numbers are overwhelming. People want them punished for what they did. And that has to happen. You can promise people justice with the Russia hoax and all this other stuff. The problem is you're going to run into jurisdictions that are from jury to judge ideologically corrupt. And you're not going to. Do you think Comey's going to be convicted, Joe? I mean, like, no way. All of these people are getting off because Democrats will be on the jurors, on the juries. Democrats will be the judges. They're all getting off, and they know this. Here's the truth. They know this. Republicans, that's another thing. And that was suggested yesterday. You can do something about these jurisdictions. Start impeaching these judges. Start getting rid of Boasberg first.
How do you get convictions on that?
The Senate has to convict.
But
the Senate has to convict.
You're not going to get any Democrats to come on board with you.
You're going to have to, but you
can't even abolish the filibuster there because that's a constitutional amendment which says that you need a 2/3 conviction in the Senate.
Yes, but you can make them. You can make them at least go through the motions. Joe, like Democrats would make them go through the motions,
right.
At least draw the line on where they stand versus the other party. And Republicans just have this idea, well, then we can't get the Democrats to do it, so we're never gonna put it to a vote. Make them vote. And then
hold on a second. This is a good question for you specifically. Are you suggesting, because my intuition would say just the opposite, that if you bring an impeachment and you impeach him in the House and then it loses in the Senate, that I would think that that would garner sympathy for the impeached and make you look bad. And you're
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, listen, maybe among those who are like 65 and older, who like the idea of institutions and still trust them. But all of the voters that they're losing and bleeding right now are actually bleeding because they're not breaking the system. Like back in May, voters who were under the age of 40 told us that Donald Trump should ignore every court, including the Supreme Court, when it comes to immigration and all of this other stuff that several of these other things that we polled. And he knows that we gave this to the administration. So like freely look at the results. They wanted them to pull in Andrew Jackson and say, you know what? That's your ruling. Now enforce it. They wanted to turn the plane around. I'll blow it out of the sky before I turn it around. That's the way these voters wanted him to react. And he didn't. So at the very least, show these voters that you're trying to, who's getting in your way. And yes, it will rock the boat with some of the older voters, but and I know there's probably some who are listening, so I'm not trying to be
but if you get results, they'll come around. If you get results,
of course, and it doesn't
around.
As long and especially if you get the results and it doesn't hurt them. They're always worried about it hurting their nice stability in their golden years, right? Yeah. But if that actually doesn't happen, very much the same with the terrorists did. Who among which voting groups were the terrorists the most unpopular? Those who were older and fixed income. When Chicken Little, the sky didn't fall, they were fine and they came back around. So you kind of just got to go through the growing pains sometimes, understanding that there's a future that you have to earn. And I don't want to say some voters are more important than others, but Joe, at some point, that's kind of friggin' the name of the game. You know, it really is. Or you can lose them.
I think your answer to this is you promise to break the system.
You have to break it.
Do it.
Break it. Just break it. Yes, break it. They don't.
You break it, and then you'll win elections by breaking it. You'll win election because it'll be wildly popular if you break it.
Honestly, I know a lot of people, Elon Musk was controversial, but the younger voters, we talk about the Epstein issue, but the fact of the matter is it was around the same time, Doge, all of that, Joe, they liked what Elon Musk was doing. They liked what Doge was doing. And the minute that Donald Trump broke away from that, this really all started to fall apart. And, you know, honestly, 65 plus who didn't care, was worried about Doge, was worried because they were hearing nonsense that Elon Musk was going to like pillage their social security check. That was actually not going to happen. So the minute they realized that was not going to happen, it would have been fine. And they could have broke everything else, because who would they have prioritized? Look, during these brinksmanship politics sessions we get through, the government shutdown, who do they always make sure is taken care of first? They would never have felt it. Joe, that's the truth.
Yeah.
They barely would have noticed.
All right. Tell people where they can find you before we get out of here. I just have this last thing. Great book, From a Goater House to the White House by Terrence K. Williams. So
cool.
Yeah. House to the White House by Terrence K. Williams. If you can just tell people where they can find you.
Yep.
And links will be in the description, which I actually should have asked you for links so that I can throw it in there. So stick around after we wrap up, and I'll get that from you.
It's all great.
Tell people where they can find you, and any final thoughts you may have.
We're on X, we're on Getter, we're on Truth, we're everywhere, but the best place is on Locals, which is peoplespundit.locals.com. You can sign up, become a supporter, or you can just sign up, become a member if you want to check it out and just hang out. But you're going to see the same things we post. On Locals, you get more, you get cross tabs first. We get a lot more stuff in more detail. You know, obviously that X is a little bit difficult in that form to talk about polling and stuff like that in more detail. So on Locals, that is definitely that's our online community. That's our home. So peoplespundit.locals.com, guys. And if you wanted, like the last commenter, to go check out the Public Polling Project, you can find it there as well. But it's on Big Data Poll. Go check out the trends, guys. Go see for yourselves. While you're there, everyone always clicks on things like generic ballots and the presidential approval trends. Go look at the employment index. Go, that is a tracker we've been doing for years. Go look at the registered voter economic confidence index, which is a lot like the conference board's consumer confidence index, but it's just of registered voters, which is people that obviously we should care more about because they're actually going to vote. Go look at those trends. It's all right there. Nothing should be a surprise to anybody. It really shouldn't. It was very obvious how we got here, and the answer and how to course correct should also be kind of obvious. Don't let parochial interests get in the way of that stuff.
All right. God bless you, brother. I had a great time with you. I thank you for joining me. Yeah, it's always good when we hang out. So I thank you all for joining me. God willing, I hope to be streaming on Saturday night. I'll probably have Jim Satal on then. He normally comes on Thursdays. I'll probably have him on Saturday night. And you know what they say, lab meat is not meant for you. It's meant for they, them. It's not meant for you. Don't eat lab meat, and do not eat the bugs. Have a good night, everyone. And as always, Godspeed.